Today, as the session opens, we pray for your presence will be before us and for everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for your direction, which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day of wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of the city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city to make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. Roll call.
Counsel Noon. Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Chow.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Here.
Counsel Elliott. Here. Mayor Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
That's 8 present.
Mayor's business, 2-1 communication, remote and Zoom.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Moment of silence.
Oh, yeah, okay. Actually, yep, I got a list here, so let me just start down this end and go across. Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the family, Sarat Srey and Kim Srey, I would like to request a moment of silence in Docken Chamber of legalist Sarat Srey. Legalist Sarat Srey passed away Thursday, July 8, 2021, just shy of her 12th birthday at Tufts Children's Hospital following a tragic drowning in the Merrimack River. Born on August 2, 2009 in Kandal, Cambodia, she was the daughter of Sarat Srey and Chanda Tol Srey. Legalist came to Lowell in 2015 and attended Green Hodge Elementary School, followed by Robinson Middle School, and would have entered the 7th grade this fall. Legalist and her family are members of the Wat Khmer Samagi Santikaram of North Chelmsford, Massachusetts. She loves nature and animals, especially frogs. She was an avid Robloxer and Minecraft YouTuber who enjoyed manga and ramen. She was a fun-loving free spirit just starting to come into her own while maintaining the innocence of the sweet child she was. She will be remembered by her family for having the cheeriest smile. Besides her parents, she is survived by her 2 brothers, Ratana and Maya Hun of Cambodia, and her 2 sisters, Kanya Hun and Elizabeth Srey Sarat of Lowell, Massachusetts. On behalf of the family, thank you for your continued support and outreach during this difficult time. It is my honor to share with you that Legalist saved the life of a young boy with her heart. A teenage male was saved when he received Legalist liver. A male in his 30s received her left kidney and pancreas. And lastly, a woman in her 30s life has been forever changed, receiving Legalist right kidney. Legalist was able to save the lives of 4 people. She is a true hero. A GoFundMe.com account to support the family of Legalist Sarat Srey is set up by her sister, Elizabeth Srey. The family wants to give Legalist the memorial she deserves, to honor her memory and say their last goodbyes. The family is currently asking for donations to help cover the cost of Legalist funeral. They need to raise $15,000 by July 30th this year in order to be able to afford the funeral service. The family thank you and your benignity and prayer to their family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docken Chambers for Patricia Pat Whitaker, Montgomery, 69 of Lowell, passed away unexpectedly on Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021 at her home. She was the beloved wife of Robert Montgomery, Jr., with whom she would have celebrated their 47th wedding anniversary, June 29, 2021. She was born in Lowell on March 17, 1952, and was the daughter of the late Paul Whitaker and the late Helen Moynihan Whitaker. She was raised in Lowell, where she attended area schools, graduating from St. Margaret's School, Keith Hall, Lowell State College, and finally Fitchburg State College with her master's degree. Pat was an avid reader and lifelong learner, setting an example for all that she loved. Pat made her home in the Highlands section of Lowell, where she was a communicant of St. Margaret of Scotland Church. She devoted her life to being an educator in Lowell, teaching elementary school at St. Michael's, the Bartlett, and the Merklin for over 35 years. She enjoyed teaching with a genuine passion, delighting in the growth of her students, her children, her grandchildren, and anyone else she decided could use an earful of wisdom. A child of Lowell, Pat would bring a smile or a laugh to everyone's face, fill your belly with her inherited baking and cooking skills, or a groan as she wiped the floor with you in a colorful worded game of 45s. Pat was a consummate entertainer, hosting countless holiday parties, and would let her guests leave without 4 extra days of food. If there was a singular point of focus in her later years, it was certainly her grandchildren, whom she adored unequivocally and with all her heart. In addition to her husband, Robert Montgomery of Lowell, she is survived by her son, Robert Montgomery III, and his wife, Michelle of Lowell, her daughter, Colleen Delaney, and her wife, Lauren of Stoneham. Her 5 grandchildren are Evelyn Montgomery, Nico Delaney, Hunter Delaney, Lila Montgomery, and Dylan Delaney. Her brother Tom and wife Eileen Whitaker of Connecticut, Mary Ann Whitaker of Nashua, New Hampshire, Kevin and Brenda Richardson of Lowell, Jim and Carol Ann Lake of Dracut, and Paul Kuchar of Dracut all remember her fondly. She is also remembered by her many beloved nieces and nephews. She was predeceased by her brothers Paul and Frank Whitaker, as well as her sister-in-law Janice Kuchar and lifelong friend Catherine O'Brien. Pat Montgomery will be missed by family, neighbors, co-workers, and many friends. May her soul rest in peace.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Lorraine L. LaFeria Mellon. She received her education in the Lowell schools. Lorraine was a longtime volunteer at the Lowell Senior Center and the Salvation Army in Lowell. Lorraine was very active in the Friends of the Lowell Council on Aging. We are entirely grateful for all the work she has done for us with the Friends. Lorraine is survived by her sons Roland Saucier and Frank Saucier, and daughter Valerie, and 3 daughters from a previous marriage, 7 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. We offer our condolences to her family, relatives, and many friends. I'd also like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Georgia S. Themelis, beloved wife of the late Stephen Themelis. Georgia grew up in Lowell and graduated from Lowell High School in 1947. Georgia's exceptional clerical skills eventually led her to a position in the Lowell Police Department. For over 57 years, the name Georgia and the Lowell Police Department were synonymous. She would end up having some connections to every patrolman, officer, captain, or chief at some point in their careers. She truly loved serving the Lowell Police Department and the brave men and women of the force. Georgia was family to each one of Lowell's finest for 57 years. We offer our sympathy to her family, friends, and the Lowell Police Department. She will be truly missed. We also offer our condolences to all those that have died since our last city council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We can dim the lights. Thank you. Need a motion to accept and place on file communication of remote and Zoom participation by Counselor Conway, seconded by Counselor Drinkwater. 2-2, recognition, Mr. John Power as an honorary citizen of Lowell. We'd like to offer our sincere thank you, and we have a citation for you, but I'll go to Counselor Samaras. It was his motion, and let him speak. Counselor Samaras?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this was a motion made by Councilor Rourke and myself. You know, when I requested that we create a certificate of honorary citizen of Lowell, I really felt it was important to acknowledge the good work that people who do not live in Lowell try to do in Lowell or did in Lowell. But these are people who have companies in Lowell or work in the city. I think we must acknowledge people who have made a difference, people who have enhanced the quality of life of people in this city. And John Power, who's here tonight, certainly is a great example of that. John, on behalf of the council, the city council, thank you for your donation of your building at Cross Rivers to be made available to Circle Health or Lowell General Hospital, and Jody White is here representing Lowell General Hospital, to establish a vaccination center. That vaccination center was considered, Mr. Mayor, one of the best run in the state. I think we all know that. And according to the Lowell Sun, an editorial in the Lowell Sun, they spoke of how much money, a great deal of money was saved at this site because it did not cost, it did not have the cost like many other sites did have throughout the state. This was an example, I think a great example, of a public-private partnership. A successful developer in Lowell and Mr. John Power, a hospital of the caliber of Lowell General, well-run by Mr. Jody White. And these two men came together, working with our city manager, I know our city manager, our state delegation, and the city manager brought this information before this city council to make this center work, and this center worked very well. We know these are trying times. We know we haven't defeated the COVID virus, but I think in Lowell, there's been a very good attempt to make sure that we try to do our best. And the only way we can do things like this is to have people like John Power and Jody White working together to make this a better city. And I just want to commend them, and I want to thank the city council for allowing us to create a certificate of honorary citizen of Lowell, because I think that's the best way we can say to anybody, you really made this, you really helped the quality of life in this city, and you deserve to be a citizen of the city of Lowell, and they are true citizens of the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to quickly piggyback on Councilor Samaras, I was fortunate enough to walk in with Mr. Power this evening. And Madam Manager, you're going to have to repaint those crosswalk lines because we almost got killed walking over here. But, talking quickly about, tonight, Mr. Power spoke about the partnerships with Jody White from Lowell General, with yourself, your administration, the state delegation, that everybody came together in a time of need. And that's what he was most proud of, to be part of that teamwork. The council as well, the appreciation that we have for our citizens and our residents that, we're able to access the site. It was a flawless operation over there, and we are very, very fortunate to have everybody in place to put this together on a very quick schedule, and that it was open for as long as it needed to be. So my thanks as well, and going forward, just another example of how the city and its partners come together in a time of need. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Power, if you want to stand up, I'll read your certificate for you, and if you'd like to say a couple words. So, City of Lowell, be it here known that upon the recommendation of the Lowell City Council and by authority vested in the city manager, Eileen M. Donahue, and the mayor, John J. Leahy, of the City of Lowell, that John Power has, on this July 13th, 2021, been made honorary citizen of Lowell. Thank you. And again, thank you for everything you've done for the city, and microphone's yours.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I have to say, councilors, this man over here is as important as anyone in making me look really good. We could not have done this. I know back, it was almost 30 years ago, 1993, when I first got introduced to a small little building out on Chelmsford Street. And we were involved in the auction of the Wang Towers at that point, which became Cross Point. And that was the start of a lifelong journey and connection to the city, and it's been something that I am incredibly proud of. I have to say, I was born in another city in New England. When I came to Lowell, I had never seen a group of individuals that work together, that pull together, that find reasons to succeed like you do in the city of Lowell. And that was the reason I came here originally. It's the reason I've stayed all the time I've been, and I can't tell you how proud I am to be part of this. And I have to end with Jim Cook cannot call me a blow-in anymore, right?
No?
Thank you so much. It's a big honor.
Thank you. Would you like to come up and take a quick picture with the council?
Mr. Mayor, just one last quick thing. If this is worth anything in the long run, you'll find a way to get another smokestack lit up this Christmas. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott likes ladders, so he'll be the first one to climb up, help hang him.
Not that high.
City clerk portion. Need a motion to accept the minutes of the nonprofit organization subcommittee, June 22nd, city council regular meeting, June 22nd, zoning subcommittee, June 29th, transportation subcommittee, June 29th. Need a motion by Councilor Samara, seconded by Councilor Rourke, to place on file. Not being 7 o'clock, we'll get to the communications. Any questions on motion response A, RMV service? Councilor Rourke?
Yeah, just quick, obviously, thank you very much for pushing us forward. As of August 3rd, they're still just by appointment only. Have they given any update to when they'll be just open to the public?
No, actually, we did ask that. That's how they're operating all of the RMVs right now, and the acting registrar didn't have any date yet when that expects to change. But it will be open for appointments.
Okay, it will be accessed through online and calling in?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I also want to thank Representative Golden, who was instrumental in getting our meetings set up on this and bringing this to the attention of the RMV.
Okay, and just quick, so I know we talked about the appointment only. Did they give any time frame to when? Is it another month? Is it hopefully by the end of the year? Is it, did they give us anything?
She didn't, no.
And then no reason why they're doing what they're doing?
No, as I said, when we asked as far as when they would go back to regular, she said, this is how we're operating all of our RMVs at the moment, but she didn't indicate when that might change. Nor do I know when there's going to be a permanent registrar, so maybe that's part of it, I'm not sure.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions on motion response B, firehouse, extractors, and hot water tanks? Just, if I can, from up on the chair, I just want to thank the manager and DPW commissioner for taking a look at this, and hopefully it says by the end of September, we'll have the right amount of, the correct number of hot water tanks and everything in for the extractors and the showers, Madam Manager?
Yes, that's correct. I know Chief Sharon is here and Commissioner Clancy. They've worked together on this project, Mr. Mayor, and are addressing the needs of the various firehouses. And it does look like, in order to properly address it, they will need to either replace existing hot water tanks and add an additional one, so that there's one that will service the extractors, which I think in their report they show you how big a machine that is and the water that's required, as well as for the shower area. So it seems like the solution is to have two separate tanks in each firehouse.
Thank you. Motion response C, the Olet Bridge. Council Samaras, any questions?
I just want to thank the manager for this report. So basically, because this was not asked for this fiscal year, it'll be available for fiscal year '23.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. It's not in this capital budget, so we would look to do it in the next round, which would be for FY23, a year from now.
Could I ask a question? The one thing that the report outlines, which I think most people know, or some people might not understand, but what's missing is some of the anti-skid material that's needed on that bridge, because it's basically a metal bridge, metal base. Because of that, is there a possibility down the road with COVID money coming in, because this is a safety issue, that this could be brought into this cycle? Is there any possibility of that?
I'm not aware of that this would be a direct result of COVID. Would have to look at that. There is an infrastructure bill that is before Congress. It might be more appropriate if, once that's, assuming that passes, there may be an avenue for monies for something like this through the infrastructure bill.
Basically, I was referring to infrastructure, if that was made available. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions on Highland Construction? Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Madam Manager and Commissioner Clancy, thank you for the report. The report came back a lot better than we had expected. And thank you for clarifying, because I think just because there are multiple construction going on in the Highlands, there's some confusion whether it's the sidewalk project that the city received $2.5 million to do the project in the Highlands, Pine Street, Stevens Street, Middlesex Street, and Plain Street, but there's also ongoing National Grid project. I believe Commissioner Clancy is here. I wonder, just to provide clarity for the public out there, could you explain a little bit about the sidewalk paving project in the Highlands and the other constructions going on in the Highlands? So just to separate them, because I know that each contract, they do their own things, and just to provide safety to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Sure. So this project is part of the citywide paving and city program, and a lot of the streets that we are doing on this fiscal year are in the Highlands. So what has been completed is Pine Street, Stevens Street, substantially complete. They will be continuing work through the summer. I call it punch list work, so back a sidewalk work. The next street that we'll move on to is Plain Street, and that will happen later this summer and then completing in September. We do have a couple other streets outside of the Highlands area, Suffolk Street and Dummer, that will happen later this fall. And then we have Middlesex Street that will happen in the spring. There will still be construction going on Middlesex Street, and that will start this summer. It will be the gas company. So I think to people driving by, they see construction on Middlesex Street. There will be construction this summer and into the fall, but that'll be gas work. And then we'll be coming in after the fact to do the roadway and sideway work. Just by the time that happens, that will be in the spring of 2022.
Well, thank you for the report. So the $2.5 million, that's to beautify and improve the sidewalk. That's separate, and that's a contract by Ally Paving. But the National Grid construction, whatever they dig up on the street, whether the sidewalk, that's a separate responsibility by National Grid outside of Ally Paving, is that correct?
Correct. We coordinate with National Grid and their contractors, NewCo, so that work is done separately under their contractor, their contractors, NewCo. So that's outside the $2.5 million. But we coordinate closely, so we don't require permanent restoration because we're coming in right after, but they will have to restore the trench in any areas. We will come in and really button up the street and into its entirety, the sidewalks and the roadway, so it will be, no trenches when we're done with the work.
Thank you so much for the report, Commissioner. And just to the residents in the Highlands area, this construction, it does take a little bit of time, but at the end, I see the photos here in the report. They do look beautiful, and they look safe, and they follow the ADA guideline. You just ask for people's patience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions on this one? Just one quick question. A lot of people call and they're concerned. At the end of the project, they will do a second coat on the little sections of driveways and putting the road up to the driveways and, right, just to reassure people that they probably wait for like 2 or 3 good days and do a whole street in one day versus small projects, right?
Sure. So we do often, the contractor installs in lifts. So I think we did receive some complaints a couple weeks ago where people's, the reveal at their driveways was excessive. And that was really because the contractor had just installed that first lift, but they have to come back and install a second one. So there will be, there will be interim conditions throughout this process where there'll be maybe excessive lips, but that's something, or reveals, and that's something that the contractor's responsible at the end of the day to really put things back to, really, we don't want more than an inch and a quarter of a reveal at a driveway. So that's something that we work through, and that's what we call it, the punch list. So we go through, we do the entire roadway, sidewalks, and then there's restoration at the back of sidewalk in the driveway areas that we will require that the contractor complete. A lot of that will happen this summer on Stevens and Pine, and then for Middlesex Street, it will be happening likely next summer after they do the substantial amount of work on Middlesex Street.
Thank you. Next, any questions on the FEMA flood insurance changes? Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few questions concerning the response. So when it comes to the National Flood Insurance Program and the new rates that are being set by FEMA, do we know if there are any deductible changes that's going to go along with it? I mean, I know the report now says typically it's about $1,000, but would that be affected by the new 2.0 rating system?
Madam Manager?
I think Shad Ahmed is on the Zoom in terms of the, what the changes will be. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't.
Yeah,
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Mr. Ahmed, did
Yes.
you hear the question?
I did, yes, thank you. So as far as the changes, FEMA is only changing the premium formulation right now. So anything else is not changing. The mapping is not changing. Any other terms are not changing. It is strictly focused on just the premium amount itself.
Okay, and do we know that, it says here 58,000 homes in Massachusetts. Do we know how many of those are in Lowell? And
I do
guess
not
the
have
breakdown would
them.
be further by neighborhood?
I don't have that information now.
Okay, so I think what may be helpful.
We can try and get that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's available, but we'll try and, inquire as far as how many,
Sure.
may be in Lowell. Right now, they're just giving a range of what's the highest possible, change to the premium, and then what, but we're not sure where we fall. They're saying $20 a month, but that's only for 6%. of the homes, so, out of the whole state, so.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to, what the 6%, if those contain Lowell homes.
Right.
How many other
Sure.
percentage is Lowell part of? And then it does say that the city is attempting to help mitigate, the rise as much as possible. Some of the things that the city is doing to help that cause?
We're going to investigate to see what available resources we have for that, as well as trying to work with the Chad, I don't know if he's still on, but, there were a couple of opportunities he identified. I think at this point, we don't have a breakdown from them as to, whose rates are getting raised, how much they're getting raised by, so I think we need to get that. And at the same time, try and look at, if there are certain policies that could affect whether they should be included in this or not, in terms of the increased premiums.
I know it is upcoming fast. I think it's October 1st when the new rates go into account. Then
Yeah,
they,
for new policies, it's October 1st,
in
and then
existence is April.
renewals is April 1st, 2022.
So soon, by April of '22, everybody's going to see.
Yeah, because these policies have to be renewed annually, so I would suspect by April of 2022, either, you're up for renewal or you will be up for renewal if you're an existing policy or existing homeowner with a policy. So by October 1st of this year will be for any new insurance policies, meaning someone bought a home, as opposed to renewing their existing policy.
Okay, yeah, if it would be possible to see if we can get the breakdown for Lowell, the percentage of the 6% that Lowell's a part of, and then by neighborhood, I think that would be beneficial. Thank you very much.
And we'll try and find out exactly where the houses or homes in Lowell are located, as you say, by neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Next motion, building permits, ANRs, single lodging homes. Councilor Elliott, any questions on this one?
We are discussing this in the zoning subcommittee, so I appreciate the information, particularly in the ANR. I know it's a state law, but it seems like neighbors should be notified somehow if there is a subdivision taking place. But I'd like to just continue the discussion that we have been having in the zoning subcommittee. Similarly to the second part of the motion, which was lodging houses, which the report indicates they're not allowed in the city under a particular zone. However, they are allowed in a number of zones by special permit, which I understand, but it seems that neighborhoods have to sort of patrol certain zones, similar to the one on Whipple Street, where 33 units are going to be have been proposed in an already very dense neighborhood, and it doesn't make sense. They don't have the parking and a lot of other things. So no objection, we'll just refer this motion to the zoning subcommittee, which I would like to hold in 2 weeks, if there's nothing already scheduled.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Conway.
Yep.
Motion response, Chelmsford Street, no parking. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The residents on Wade Street, which is going to Chelmsford Street, just want to thank Madam Manager and Christine McCall for the quick response and putting up the sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Howard Street, no parking. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a business on the corner there. It's a very busy traffic business, so they are looking forward to seeing the trial, the 60-day trial for the no parking sign that would help them moving their trucks in and out of their parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Being 7 o'clock, we'll jump into public hearing, get back to the motion responses. Utility hearing. National Grid requests installation of new switchgear and electrical conduit for power to new parking garage at 171 Jackson Street. I'll open up the hearing to all those in favor. In favor? Somebody here from National Grid? Oh, all right, yep, thank you. I can put you on the Zoom. I used to have an every.
Yeah, I was told I had to come in person. Vasnang, National Grid, 1101 Turnpike Street, North Andover. So we're petitioning to put in new conduit for the new proposed garage on Jackson Street. We would like to run about 20 to 30 feet of conduit for primary and secondary conduit going across the street to 171 Jackson Street. We're going to hopefully get an easement for a switchgear and a transformer.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone else in favor? In favor, that portion is closed. Open up to anybody in opposition? Opposition? Opposition, hearing none. Need a motion to refer the wire inspector for a report and recommendation by Councilor Chow, seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Back to the communications. Rapid Planning Grant Response, that was my motion. Any questions from the floor? Just want to thank the manager and DPD for the report, and look forward to the upcoming subcommittees. Any questions on River's Edge response? I don't know whose motion that was. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, Madam Manager. This accompanies a report on a prior motion relative to any city funding that has been spent on River's Edge. I appreciate the update, and thank you for the reports. I'm concerned with this last phase of the project, Madam Manager. There have been 155 units built on the former Julian Steel project. And it was November last year that a representative from the Lowell Housing Authority appeared before the City Council to request a zoning change for a parcel of land for about 3.3 acres, which at the time was zoned a traditional two-family. And the request was to change to a single suburban neighborhood multifamily zone. At the time, the purpose as proposed for the zoning change was to allow up to 52 units of affordable housing to be constructed on that last phase of the Julian Steel redevelopment project. At that time, as I felt then as I do now, 52 units on 3.3 acres was not a suitable proposal for the project. The matter was also referred to the zoning board, the planning board, which interestingly enough came back with a recommendation of no finding. However, the board found that the rezoning from a traditional two-family to a single, suburban multifamily would substantially increase the allowable density. It was discussed how in traditional two-family district, the minimal lot of 6,000 square feet and up to 2-unit structures are permitted. So the no finding recommendation, is a concern. So we do know that this proposal came back in a vote to substantially reduce the number of units in the development, that last phase, to, I believe it was 33. I'll just have to check on that, between 33, the report says 38. Still a lot of units on that zone. So the reason for my Council Noon filed motions and myself in the project, we have a duty as elected officials to ensure that the tax dollars, any dollars, are spent properly, the bidding laws are abided by, and that this project is done in accordance with the enabling legislation. So it has been brought to my attention that excavation, tree removal, fill has been brought in, all without any authorization, any contracts, any permits from the Conservation Commission. and the contractor is looking for $1.7 million in reimbursement. Interestingly, all the work was done back in 2013. It's almost 8 years ago. The contractor, O'Brien Construction of Andover, looking to get paid. To my knowledge, I don't know if funding is available from Residents First Development Corporation. Maybe I'm wrong. However, an environmental engineering firm was hired by another LLC, Watermark, in April to conduct analysis, a cost-benefit on, or excuse me, it's an independent analysis on the exact amount that was expended. Items include clearing, grubbing, topsoil, unsuitable soil removal, rock excavation, fill, purchase and placement, 12-inch drainage pipe installation, fence post installation, et cetera. The list goes on. But this wasn't done for Residents First Development Corporation. This was done for Renew. And I don't understand, because the enabling legislation that I have chapter, excuse me, Session Laws 2000, Chapter 193, designates Residents First Development Corporation as the sole developer, designated nonprofit corporation located in the city to develop this project. But the report does detail the work that was done on that last parcel. So, Madam Manager, I get a number of questions. Why are we involved? Why is the city involved? The Amendment Acts of 2002, Chapter 97, Section 2, squarely placed the responsibility, oversight, development of this project with the Lowell Housing Authority, and I quote, the Lowell City Council. The Lowell City Council and the Department of Housing and Urban Development shall approve the development plan. That's not been brought before us. So I've been to the site, and it directly abuts the river. It's right on the river, river's edge, and significant work has been done. There's not a tree on the 3.3-acre site. Fill clearly has been moved in, graded. There's currently huge mounds of soil, rock, debris dumped on the site, some with paint on it, so it's clearly contaminated. I want to know if any permit has been issued or applications submitted, order of conditions provided for work on this last phase. My understanding that there's a consultant advising the Lowell Housing Authority on this. I think those are questions relative to the Conservation Commission that Councilor Noon raised. So I think there's a lot of questions, Madam Manager. I also understand that there's an Inspector General investigation that is now taking place on work that is being done, or that was done. So to me, there are significant violations. We filed motions. I believe we deserve answers. Taxpayers deserve answers. This project, it was very controversial at the outset. I know you sat here, Madam Manager. In the state, we approved the legislation, and it's our duty to make sure, again, according to the legislation, the Housing Authority and the Lowell City Council squarely have responsibility for this. So those are my questions. Those are the issues. Those are the concerns. Why was this money spent? What is the status of these units? The legislation says 180 units. The report indicates, the report that we just received indicates that the final phase of the development is proposed to include 19 duplexes, 38 units. These homes will be constructed in the same site, in the same style. This will bring the total number of units on that site to 193. Legislation clearly states 180 units. So I know the Housing Authority has this, I've been of discussing this, the Board of Commissioners. There's a lot of unanswered questions. So, Madam Manager, have you been in touch with the Executive Director of the Housing Authority? Are you aware that there's an Inspector General letter that has been issued?
We have no knowledge of any Inspector General investigation. The only, well, obviously, we requested information from the Housing Authority as well as Residents First. We did include the response in the update from the Housing Authority. And that's all we've received. We haven't received anything from Residents First.
As for the charge that there was some work in a jurisdictional area, we can send an inspector out tomorrow to figure out if there is a violation. Not the entire site is not jurisdictional, but where the last phase is under Concom jurisdiction. So if there was any tree removal, loam, gravel, rocks, or debris placed within 100 feet of the water, then it would be a violation, and we could issue an enforcement order to clean it up. They are proposing 193 units. That is in front of the planning board. That is, they'll have to go get, they have to go to the planning board for permits before anything's approved. And then because they're revising the plan for the number of units, it does have to be signed off by the city of Lowell, and we can bring that to the council if you so choose. My recommendation would be to wait until after the land use board decision, but we can do that prior to if you.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last point?
So the revised plan does have to go to DHCD. Typically, that's something we would approve in-house after a land use decision, but we can bring it back in front of the council.
I think that has to come before the council, yes. I think that's a good start. There's a 40-page report by Watermark that reflects the work that was done out there, and if it's not authorized, if there's no permits, if there's nothing before the regulatory boards, that's unconscionable, in my opinion. So those are my questions, Madam Manager. I'm happy to forward this report if you haven't seen it. That and any others. If there isn't, I would like confirmation on the Inspector General. I think we have, we're owed that, and particularly because, again, the Lowell City Council is specifically mentioned in this legislation. So when people tell me that it's the Housing Authority or it's Residential Development First Corporation, that it's not any of the City of Lowell's business, it's 100% the City of Lowell's responsibility, in my opinion. It's working together with these parties, which we have done successfully up to this point. Why work with authorized to 1.7 million without funding, without a plan, without permits, is beyond my comprehension, beyond my understanding. So thank you, Christine. I urge your conservation agent or commission to go out to the site. You'll see what I mean. It looks like it's a dumping ground for somebody, and you know, costs have been incurred according to this 40-page report by O'Brien. That is, I'm sure that we'll have more follow-up on this. I know there was a motion to have this sent to the Housing Subcommittee. I think it's more than that. I think when additional information comes, it should be discussed with Residential Development Corp. and any other parties before the entire city council. This is not, in my opinion, a subcommittee, issue for subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank
Madam
you.
Manager?
And Council, if you could share with us what you have, that would be great, that report, because we didn't receive that, or anything on the Inspector General. So we will certainly follow up and pursue those.
I'm happy to forward it to you. It was conducted in April of 2021. So I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
do you have a motion to send it to Housing Subcommittee?
No, there wasn't there was a motion in the past that was sent. I believe I made that motion. However, I think this warrants the entire city council having discussion, not a city council with Residential Development Corp. and any other parties to address this situation. I think most importantly is conservation to, we get additional information as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to point out, Councilor Elliott is correct. The motion had already been referred to the Housing Subcommittee, and we were waiting on the information to come back from the Lowell Housing Authority before that meeting was scheduled. So upon receiving the information in this week's packet, I had reached out to Lowell Housing Authority Director Gary Wallace, who expressed eagerness to attend a subcommittee meeting, as did the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Phil Shea. So I had started the process of trying to coordinate a meeting. I don't think a subcommittee meeting would preclude a discussion in front of the full City Council. So do intend to move forward with scheduling the Housing Subcommittee meeting for more information, and again, not to preclude anything in front of the full council. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll sit on this one. Thank
Well,
you.
I think in the future, to follow by planning form of government, it's really the city manager that's designated to reach out to the individuals to have them attend this meeting, including residential first. I mean, I understand the intent, but I think it's the city manager that's designated to be our representative.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Informational reports, Madam Manager?
Thank you. There's the Community Preservation Act. We have the Community Preservation Commission has met and adopted Lowell 2021 Community Preservation Plan, and we've included that in the packet for the council for information. The eligibility forms to be submitted in connection with the plan to the CPC must be done by September 9th, 2021. And we want to try and get the word out to as many people as possible so that they can entertain submitting an application to the CPC.
Thank you. Questions on that? Okay, resignation, Madam Manager? Resignation of Mary Donnelly, Council on Aging. Any questions on that? Need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Drinkwater, second by Councilor Conway. And then communication, two requests from the LPD for out-of-state travel. Any questions on that? Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have Chief Richardson available at all?
He's not here this evening.
Not here, okay. Does anybody know if we have any more law enforcement trust fund money available, or is it not used for this? Because every time we seem lately to be getting a request, not that I'm opposed of it, I'm not, but I know that a lot of these requests for travel, if it were related to drugs, training.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of training, whether
Yeah.
it's available. This one, as I understand it, has to do with the crash reconstruction, which I don't think would be eligible for. There are law enforcement trust funds that we have, but I don't think this particular one would be eligible.
Well, there's SWAT training, and I
Right.
think that's pertinent to drug enforcement.
Yeah, they're pretty good about if they think it falls under that. They usually do
Yeah.
have it under the law enforcement.
We could just have an answer on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Need a motion to adopt by Council Rourke, second by Councilor Chow. Roll call.
Counsel Noon, Counsel Rourke,
Yes.
Counsel Samaras,
Yes.
Counsel Chow,
Yes.
Counsel Conway,
Yes.
Counsel Drinkwater,
Yes.
Counsel Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Leahy,
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes,
8 yeas.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
we're going into the votes for the
Yeah,
city
let me
manager.
I need a motion to accept and place on file all the motion responses by Councilor Drinkwater, second by Councilor Conway. And then, right, we were gonna go to the votes, but I was gonna ask for a
Suspension of the rule.
suspension of rules to get into the motions, because we have people here registered to speak. So, motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Chow, to suspend the rules and go into the motions.
Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
also through you to Mr. Clerk, we have 22 motions. I like the idea of suspending it and take on the motions now. There are 22 motions. If there are registered speaker for those motions, can we move them up in order, have the,
Well, I'm thinking we can just fly right through them,
okay, it's fine.
22, so, because the registered speaker on the second one anyway, so. All right, so city council motions. Now, first one by Council Elliott, request transportation subcommittee meet to address speeding, cut-through traffic on Starboard Street, and put measures into place to protect over a dozen school-aged children that live and play in the neighborhood and walk to the McAvenue School. Seconded by Council Rourke. Council Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's become a very, very, very dangerous cut-through for people trying to avoid, or trying to get to the VFW, avoid the Mammoth Road intersection. I've been there, I've spoken to many neighbors. Woodward and Brookside are also a cut-through, but when that backs up and they have to wait for the light, now they go down Starboard. So when we get a transportation engineer, I know this is a priority. It's a dangerous accident waiting to happen. More traffic it's becoming more dangerous. So that's the motion, and if we can send it to the Transportation Subcommittee as well to come up with a resolution. I know years past when cut-through was taking place on a number of streets, Delaware, Dunbar, Melrose, that whole section to get over the bridge. The Transportation Department came up with solutions, and that was one way, Townsend Road, Malden, Shirley, Lexington, that whole area, one way, or you can't go through during certain hours. So I think that's some recommendations that we can look at. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Madam Manager, I would imagine that these types of motions are piling up, not with stop signs or traffic lights, but things like this. And, we had this discussion before about a traffic engineer and the difficulty in finding one. What's the administration's plan on going forward? Are we, I'm sure that HR has tried, their darndest to find somebody. In the meantime, councils can file motions like this all day, but if we don't have some sort of engineer or consultant in place, how does the work get done?
Thank you. Pursuant to the suggestion of the council, we have contracted with a firm to help in the search for a transportation engineer. So that's in progress right now, and we're hopeful that maybe they have, a better ability to reach people and recruit. So stay tuned. We will keep you posted as to how that effort is going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. Has there been any success, Madam Manager, in, I know the salary seems to be a prohibiting factor from getting good candidates? Is there any progress? I know this position is in a union, and you've been trying to work with the unions to, to allow us to increase it. We know that we're being outbid by the MBTA, or more importantly, private firms, because there's so much work out there.
There are a number of positions. This is one of them that we need to look at in our conversations. We're also asking the firm to advise on competitive salary, looking at like city, like size communities and so forth, so.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this motion? All those in favor say aye. 11-2, Council Elliott. Request City Council discuss with the Election Commission to add a second polling location at each voting district to ensure that all voters have convenience, access, ability to vote in the municipal election. Seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. This one, we have a number of registered speakers.
Yes.
You want to let the speakers go first, Council Elliott?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Clark?
Deb Belanger.
Thank you. If you just want to state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Debbie Belanger, 65 La Plume Avenue in Pawtucketville. Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Madam Manager, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Every vote in this city counts. I implore you to make every effort as a city to increase access to voters, to how and where they can cast their ballot. As I said last week, voting is central to a functioning democracy. Reducing the number of polling places only makes it harder for people to vote close to their home. We need to consider that some residents rely on public transportation and have non-traditional work schedule. It's incumbent upon us to make voting easier. I'm disappointed that this decision adds barriers rather than reduces them. I was happy to see that a home rule petition was filed last week to enhance early voting, but I just implore you all to come up with a solution to add back 2 voting locations per district. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
George Zararis.
Hi, my name is Zara East, German George. My address is 53 Tolman Avenue, Pawtucketville. So I'm here tonight to speak in favor of having 2 polling stations. I think it's important to give people the opportunity to be able to vote. Having a single polling station per district will make it harder for Lowell residents to go out and vote. As a daughter of immigrant parents who are still getting acquainted with the U.S. voting system, election day can be very confusing for them, and having a single polling location per district will only add to that confusion. As a Lowell resident, I ask that you will make election day as easy as possible for the people of Lowell who deserve to have their voices heard. So please do not add to the voter suppression that happens so much in many states in this country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Through the Zoom, Stacy Thompson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Stacy Thompson, 45 Ursula Street, Lowell, Mass. Good evening, good evening, Mayor Leahy, City Manager Donahue, City Councilors, Election Commission, and Lowellians. It is with sincere concern that I speak this evening regarding motion 11.2. When I was a teacher in Lowell, every year I used to walk my students to the election office to register them to vote. I used it as a civics and government lesson. They learned about local government and what a vote or a non-vote could mean for them. The thing that made this possible was proximity, a distance of a couple of city blocks down Merrimack Street. It encouraged them to do something that they may have not otherwise done, and it was an easy process. The vote is a powerful tool. Each one, every vote, speaking the thoughts and ideas, concerns and proposals, consent and dissent of each voter. Every opportunity to cast your vote means something. This year, we are walking into a changed election process, one that is filled with passionate candidates, incumbent and fresh-faced, in a brand new corrected voting system. In essence, change is knocking at our doorsteps, and Lowell is preparing to answer the call. There have been several organizations over the past year that have committed to and have been doing the work of educating residents about these changes through a combination of mailed and posted literature, information booths at events, extensive social media posts, webinar series, and question and answer sessions. These volunteers sought to make sure that voters knew the path to exercising their voting power, and they did so in multiple languages. As we all know, the percentage of people who vote during local elections versus presidential is starkly different. The level of press and attention paid to the elections gains the attention of people, and while I'm hopeful that there's an uptick this year, I want to make sure that there's no deterrence. So let's think. Let's think about the older Lowellian that cherishes the familiarity of their known polling location. Let's think about the disabled that may not be able to get into the same locations in the same way that the rest of us may. What still of the hourly worker that has to get up earlier to get their vote in before heading into work? The one who doesn't have transportation is trying to figure out how to get to a new polling location. Have we considered that having one location now lengthens the time and decreases the ability for people to stand in line and wait to vote? Are the amount of voters per locale supposed to be that way? What about the people who sneak out during lunch to get their vote in? That may no longer work for people. There have been many people that debate if voting is a right or a privilege. I think that it is right to make sure that no process or choices interrupt, deter, alter, or end the privilege that many have fought to secure. It is imperative that there be ample polling locations and that any change to minimize that effectively impacts the vote and does not promote a free and fair or equitable election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Foster.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Good to see you all. Madam Manager, Madam Solicitor. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and appreciate all the work all of you do day in and day out to make sure that our democracy is not just one that can be a national model and one that people come all around the world to live in, but one that can be completely accessible and equitable for all of us. So I'm going to be quick tonight. I know we sent out a letter yesterday, and I hope you all received it. I'm going to reference that a little bit in my remarks. But again, my name is Jeff Foster. I live at 122 Humphrey Street in Lowell, and I'm also the executive director at Common Cause Massachusetts. I'm really proud to be here tonight to stand along so many organizations and people with a unified voice to ask, please, don't close our polling locations. With the support of our pro bono attorney and Common Cause board member, David Sullivan, who himself spent many years as general counsel to the Secretary of the Commonwealth's Election Division, and most recently as general counsel to the State Senate, in partnership with Michelle Tassinari in Secretary Galvin's office, who now is the current general counsel and director of that division. Both with their input, we believe that there are two options here that the city can consider moving ahead. Under state law, the city can draw new precincts using the 2010 census data. It's the same data used to create the new districts. State law also requires precincts to be no larger than 4,000 residents. If you consider the existing wards and precincts now defunct, then you have de facto precincts in your new districts that are 4 times too big. We believe the city has 2 options. Option 1 is to use the existing wards and precincts that we know are not congruent with the new districts. We know that this comes with a lot of risks because there could be clerical errors that could occur because you have multiple people in the same precinct voting in different contests. Option 2 would be for the city to subdivide the new districts in half, to create subdistricts using the 2010 census data, which the city can do. In talking to Secretary Galvin's office, this seems the option that they would encourage. To accomplish this, as was said on the earlier Election Commission meeting, this would require special permission. First, it would require special permission because you would need to seek approval to have subdistricts that would still be too big under state law. And you would also need to seek special permission because you would need immediate implementation of these new subdistricts. Both options have their ups and downs as it relates to the administration, as it relates to educating the public, as it relates to the timeliness, but both are doable if we choose to do it. I will say this, I think this is really important to note. We do believe that even the plan to consolidate and have 1 polling place per district still requires special permission. And so we believe if this is a route that the city can and wants to pursue, that we do it with haste, and instead of consolidating polling locations, we support Councilor Elliott's effort here, and I know an effort supported by many of you on the council and in the public to have 2 polling locations per district. It's our opinion at Common Cause that option 2 is the best option, given its support by Secretary Galvin's office, and the fact that it would result in an increase in polling locations up to 16 across the city. I will say this, that it was just said on the Election Commission meeting earlier that it will now take us too long because we need to, before letting voters know, translate education materials and also hand enter these new subdivided voter rolls into the state's VRIS system. I would say to you this, and I'm off script. A lot more work was needed to build this democracy. If there's a little bit more work ahead of us to prevent closing these polling locations, I'm personally committed as a citizen to help do whatever it takes, even if it means hanging out on nights and weekends as a volunteer to help hand enter that information into the state system. You have my commitment. In closing, I want to recognize that there is a perceived benefit to the administration of elections if you do consolidate polling locations, but I respectfully maintain that the cost is far too high if it creates any new barriers between a single voter and their constitutional right to vote. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tara Hong.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilor, and Madam Manager. My name is Tara Hong. I live at 22 Canton Street here in Low Highland. I'm here tonight to speak in support of Councilor Elliott motion of 11.2. As a student, community member, let us make a vote as easy as possible for everyone to vote on election day. We live in a state that this problem should not be even a discussion or have any hard time to deciding to make voting accessible for everyone in this community and the state. We have so many great elected officials here and all around the country who want to serve for the community and to make decisions that fit for the community as a whole. I want to say thank you to Councilor Elliott that brought this motion up, and thank you to other organizations like Low Align, Low Vote, CMAA, CBA, DEI, and other great organizations in Low that work so hard to push to make vote easy for everyone in our community. The idea of having 2 or more voting locations in each of the district it will help so many people in our community to have the ability to go out and vote on election day. One polling location will not be enough. Many people will have a hard time, especially special need community member and elderly community member, and so they have a hard time to go to polling location because only one, they have to stand in a line and so on. And again, remember this, we live in the state of Massachusetts, and voting should be one of the easiest discussion that we should have in the state. And do not tell me that there's no other option how to fix this. And I believe that we cannot use the excuse of new voting system and census to try to make it more confusion for our community members to go out and vote on election day. Like the Lower Lines letter that sent to all of you yesterday, which include 2 options on what you could do to make more accessible for our community member to go vote and out and vote on election day. I believe that you, as my city councilor, elected commission, will make the best decision for what's suitable for our community to go out and vote on election day. Everyone here should know that every vote counts, every vote matters, and that will come down on your election night. So please, take deep consideration, fix this issue now before September 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Yunju Choi.
I didn't want it to follow him. It was so wonderful. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and Madam Manager. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today. My name is Yoon Joo Choi of 527 Pawtucket Boulevard, Unit 606, and I'm also the Executive Director of Coalition for a Better Acre. Today, I'm here to support Councilor Elliott's motion to add second polling location at each voting district to ensure that all voters have convenient access, ability to vote in municipal elections. I know we all want to make our elections as open and easy to access possible, and appreciate city's effort from last week's special meeting for home rule petition to have early voting and mail-in voting. I really appreciate it, and I hope it goes through. And Jeff Foster spoke very eloquently about the options, and I hope you would consider one of those 2 options. Today, I want to give you a couple examples of the residents that CBA serve. Closing the location is going to disproportionately affect low-income and elderly people who are less likely to have a car to travel further distances. So please don't make vote any harder than it has to. We're especially concerned about District 4, which is long and narrow, which will result in people having to travel across river from Centerville and up quite a distance from Back Central. CBA owns a property on Gorham Street in Back Central area. For our property, from our property to Lowell High School, which would be the voting location, it's exactly 1 mile. For elderly person without a vehicle, we worry that these voters will just stay home even without, even with all the outreach work that we're going to be doing. And District 2 also presents a lot of issue for residents who live on the other side of the Bridge Street. One of CBA's ambassador lives on Carolyn Street, and according to Google Map, it would take her about 17 minutes to walk from her house to Robinson School. In reality, for a 68-year-old woman with a heart condition, it would probably take her 30+ minutes to walk up the hill of Robinson School in a good weather. We live in New England. We never know what the weather is going to be like in November. What is the likelihood of her walking up those hills to vote if it's snowing or if it's really cold out? For these reasons, I would like to advocate for City Council to vote to add second polling location at each voting district. I understand having second polling location means needing more poll workers And I know there has been concerns about not having enough poll workers to work in these areas. As a partner to the city, I would like to volunteer CBA staff to work at the polls if you need more polling workers. And I have also spoken to other nonprofit workers, and they have agreed that they would also volunteer their staff. So you can have plenty of nonprofit workers who are very familiar with the new system and all the changes. So I really appreciate your time and attention, and I really do hope that you make a decision that's best for our residents in the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Grossman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council and Madam Manager, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jonathan Grossman. I live at 83 Varnum Avenue. I'm a volunteer with 350 Mass of Greater Lowell, and I'm speaking in support of the motion and against decreasing the number of polling locations. The purpose of moving to districts was to increase involvement in the election process and the government process, especially if people in communities that presently have less power in society and are not reflected well in city government. The city agreed to that. The people voted for it. It's a really important matter, and it should be prioritized. Decreasing voting locations does the exact opposite. I know the Election Commission is struggling with how to avoid that. It may be harder to manage an election this way, but we have to do it. It's the commitment the city made, the people voted for, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Torres.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mary Torres. I work with Lowell Votes and live at 85 Royal Street. Thank you all for hearing the testimonies and opening up the floor. Everyone already spoke to most of the points that I wanted to make. We have the letter available, and it's good to see that the Secretary of State's office has weighed in, that these options are feasible, that we can consider them, that there might be steps in place, maybe with the consent decree, but that in order to keep an accessible electoral process in place and promote an informed and healthy democracy, that we need to figure this out and move forward as swiftly as possible, considering the timing. I just want to add that with the letter, just in one day, we have nearly 20 organizations signed on and nearly 200 individuals signed on. I'm sure you've heard from many of them who couldn't be here to speak tonight. And I would just, add, of course, that Lowell Votes and all of our partners as a coalition and faith communities, neighborhood groups, individuals that have consistently said, we need more information about the systems change. We want that information. We want to work together to get that out to the residents. We are working very hard. We have materials available now in multiple languages, which we're trying to get out. So please keep that in mind. And if there are locations that you want those out there, we have the explanation for the new system brochures in 4 languages and resident guides now coming in 4 languages. So as a collaborative process, as much as possible, let's work together and figure this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Via Zoom, Van Touche.
Honorable Mayor Leahy, City Manager Donahue, Lowell City Council members, Lowell Election Commission, thank you for your service for the city. My name Tuj Van. I'm a proud resident of South Lowell, 106 Lundberg Street. Most important, a proud dad. I express my deep concern about Election Commission's decision regarding a single polling station per district. The decision to reduce polling stations by 40%, which is not right. It's not compliance with the state law the factor that this street exists 4,000 people. So what's next? I also support Council Elliott's motion. The Election Commission should prioritize the language require at least 2 polling stations per district by drawing sub-districts within the new districts, which will be then comply under the state law. Please consider seek for public input regarding this issue. I thank you for your close consideration of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Gadet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Gaudette. I live in the Highlands on 4 Bertram Street here in Lowell, and I'm a member of Merrimack Valley Project, which is a social justice organization throughout the valley, Haverhill, Lawrence, and Lowell. And while we were not able to formally endorse the proposal that Mr. Foster has described, we certainly support this effort and of not closing any polling stations and possibly expanding them. As an organization, MVP, Merrimack Valley Project, encourages citizen participation, especially among those who have traditionally been left out of the process. We promote voter registration and panels and debates with candidates throughout the valley so that people have a voice, and we try to help eliminate obstacles that might come in the way. Certainly, keeping polling stations open is a way to promote citizen participation, and we support the general tone of the letter that you received, sponsored by the CMAA, CBA, Lowell Votes, and several other organizations. We would like to add our voice to that effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Allett.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, City Councilors, Mayor, and Madam Manager. I am here to talk about the possibility of keeping all the regular voting places open, and also Councilor Elliott's motion also. I have walked into polling locations that had, for example, 712122 in one room. Why can't it be that easy? When I walked in, I would go to 22, I would say my address, the worker looks down and says 113 Cabot Street, I would say yes. They would give me a ballot. Now with the interactive map that we already have, the worker would look down at the address and say, hey, you're in District 7. They would now tell me that and give me a District 7 ballot. You would just match up to the election district that is already made. The district already has the whole city divided into districts. Just do a ward precinct overlay on that same map. Over the last 10 years, the acre voting places have been a moving target. Senior Center, the Masonic Temple, Lowell High School, even downtown at LTC and the Songus Arena. A candidate wears out his sneakers trying to knock on doors. A voter wears out his sneakers trying to find a location. Now, this year, people from the Lower Highlands have been added to District 7, which is the senior center, instead of their regular voting place at the Morey School. I have received a disc from the election office with every address divided into district. Most areas of the district are still whole except where they intersect. In past years, we have had only one postcard-sized notice sent less than 2 weeks before and a very small signs placed at the old site. All of us candidates will do our due diligence to notify our voting districts. The election office has been doing a great job. We will need many mailings and big signage and possibly have something like Luna Taxi circling the city at each old site to transport voters if we don't go that way. If any voters give up because of frustration or confusion, we collectively have not done our jobs. We fight for our right to vote. It shouldn't be a battle to find a location to place that vote. In the words of Demosthenes, all words are useless and vain unless followed by action. Let's do some action on this and find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the last speaker, Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the speaker said it all. I know we had a special meeting on this, and we heard from the Solicitor's Office and the Election Office. Election Commission was meeting this evening. But what struck me most by all the speakers is the passion and the pleas for help to expand the number of voting locations. And there was consistent messages, in my opinion. I completely agree. If it's confusing, if it's not convenient, if it's not accessible, then people are going to stay home. And that completely contradicts the lawsuit, the change in the electoral process. One speaker mentioned it. We expanded the number of districts to get participation both from candidates, but also voter participation. That was the premise behind this, and having one polling location is going to negatively affect that. There are so many examples that have been cited by all the speakers, both at the special meeting and then tonight. We do have to make it as easy as possible. You know, weather is one thing, and location and people and vehicles, and it does disproportionately affect seniors, disabled, low income that don't have vehicles. But if you think back in November, if you're voting at night, it's pitch black. Nobody's going to go out if it's raining and pitch black if they have to walk a significant amount. So, or if they have to travel. So I agree. I implore Madam Manager, the Solicitor's Office, and the Election Commission to subdivide the districts. I know we'll have to reach out. There are options. There are two options presented. We're going to need special permission, but every vote counts. Every vote matters. And to me, having just one polling location is going to it's going to, I think, significantly affect the number of people that come out to vote. So we shouldn't have any deterrent. And I think we all know that one location is not going to be good to get all these people going to one location to begin with, regardless of whether there's stations or not. It's just not going to be good. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you to the speakers. I think they said it best. I completely agree with the sentiment and all the central themes of convenience, prevent confusion, no deterrent, and let's work to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank all the registered speakers that come to speak today. They made very compelling statements and arguments and pleas. I also want to thank Mr. David Willett for adding some humor to the whole seriousness of having two polling stations at the district. It is true that the candidates wear out their shoes to get people to vote, and once that's done, from the candidate's point of view, from the council's point of view, we should not have also worry whether the registered voters or those who want to vote get to the polling station, get to the right one, or have accessibility to one. And the maker of the motion says it all. We heard some legal arguments, some passionate pleas. I will support this motion. Thank you.
Councilor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank the speakers as well, not only for coming here to speak tonight and making this case, but for your work and organization behind the scenes to bring this information forward to the council. I want to speak specifically to what has been referred to as option 2 in the letter that was received by the City Council, which would mean subdividing the existing City Council districts into 2 for the purpose of creating at least 2 voting locations per district. This came up when we discussed it in the elections subcommittee last week, and at the time it came up, the opinion was that it was likely that the Secretary of State's office would probably find that plan to not be legal. What we have here this week in terms of new information is an opinion from the Secretary of State's office that given special permission, either through an amendment to the consent
Council Samaras?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regard to this, I had a motion basically that was asking the city manager as to why we had to limit the number of precincts. In the previous special meeting we had, a lot of that information was provided. But in thinking about this, the one thing I've received, like all the councilors, emails, calls, and have been stopped on the street or in the supermarket regarding people's concerns about the number of polling stations that are available. Basically, I'm a traditionalist, and the thing is, I'd like to see more voting stations. I think the one thing we have to do is ensure that we have voting stations that show to people real accessibility to the privilege of being able to vote. Yes, we can do a lot through mail now, drop boxes, these things do work. But as I said, being a traditionalist, and especially during a time when we have changed the way we vote, or the number of councilors that will be working in this city. We're going from 9 to 11. We're going into 8 districts. We're going to 3 at large. It's quite different from, it's going to be quite different from what we've had over these years. And it's a major change. It's a significant change. And I just think we send the wrong message when we say, well, because of restrictions, because of the idea that the census was not done on time and that information is not available, because of this, this, and this, and the state requires this, this, and this, and if we do this, there are many steps that are going to have to be taken. I just feel that we should take as many steps as we possibly can to ensure that we have adequate vote centers to vote where people don't have to cross the river, or as in we'll say Centerville, go to the Robinson School when they can go to the Robinson School and the Greenhouse School, you know, at the bottom of the hill and things like that. In other words, we've got to make it, it's not the idea of making it convenient. It's ensuring that people have accessibility to stay with their right to vote, and that it doesn't become such an obstacle that it becomes quite difficult. And I think we're sending the wrong message when we do what we're doing at this particular point. And I think the right message is that we're going to make voting as accessible as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercier.
I said, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too, as well, want to thank all the people that took their time to come up here, their busy schedule, to speak on this very important issue in a time that we say inclusive, equality, and yet they're stifling us and making us look like the bad guy because we can only have one voting place per district. And I don't know the laws, I'm not an attorney, but it seems to me that if someone looked up the law and is such as Jeff Foster, and he said that there are options and that we could go by the 2010 census to probably create 2 districts, I don't know why we can't pursue that and check it out a little bit further. I don't know if the solicitor, I don't want to put you in the spot, but do we know anything like this? I don't want to give false hope to people that came down and think that maybe we're not going to try. But I know if this city and the government finds a way, we'll do it. But we have to follow the law, and I'm not discouraging anybody, but what can we do? Can we do it?
Sure,
Mr.
Madam
Mayor.
Manager.
Thank you, and I agree. We want to have as many polling places as possible. The city doesn't have a right without seeking special home rule petition relief. So we can't just, I just want people to understand, we can't just cut the district in 2. We're not being stubborn, we're not trying to be difficult. We need legal permission, and so it's 2 vehicles. So when the solicitor advised the council last week that we can't just cut the district, and the secretary wouldn't likely allow us, that's true. The secretary answered, you can seek home rule petition, just like we've gotten other home rule petitions. It goes to the legislature, and then they would have to act, giving us permission to cut the district, each district in 2. That's a process, as we know, and we've been waiting a few months now for the signature home rule petition, so there's no way of gauging when that would happen. The other option is to go back to the federal court and ask the federal court to amend the consent decree and to allow this process, to allow putting 2. So there's no automatic right. There's one of 2 different processes that would have to go through, and I think the solicitor can address once that, however many days or weeks, or we don't know how long that would take, then there's a process that the city has to undergo. And so I think what we're trying to make sure is, if there's a delay in getting a decision, we don't know, but nonetheless, there's a number of things that have to be done in order to divide the districts. It's not just as easy as drawing, a line across the district, and maybe the solicitor can address that. But so we don't have an automatic right, is my point. We need special legal permission to do it. And so if the council, and it's the council, so the election commission picks the polling places, but it's the council that would have to petition the legislature for a home rule. We could set up a special meeting for that to be enacted, and we'd send it down to Boston and see what happens. Or we could try and go back to federal court and seek an amendment. So there's many different steps. I don't know if the solicitor wants to add to that.
And you know what I would say, Madam Manager? I never seen anything like the federal consent decree that took place, and we wanted to change certain things, and they were very adamant that they wanted fairness so that minorities would have a greater chance to be elected. If they have that attitude, I would take a shot at going to the federal government and this federal judge that was adamant in saying, this is what the people want. Well, this is what the people want, so I don't know why we can't pursue that. I would do that. I would make a motion to do that.
Madam Solicitor?
Sure. So as the manager was saying, and to follow up from last week, as of right now, there isn't a legal way of doing it. The options that are before us are to change the law, either to seek a home rule petition or to seek amending the consent decree. Just by way of background, the home rule petition that we sought to even create these 8 districts took roughly 11 months to find final passage. The manager had also mentioned the more recent that we had filed in May to reduce the number of signatures. That has not yet reached second reading. So if we were to pursue either one of these paths, I think the only path that really could provide some mechanism of being done in some timely manner, like in a matter of weeks, would be to seek to amend the consent decree. However, there is still a lot of variables that we would have to contend with, and in particular, that the Election Commission would have to contend with. I should note, for everyone watching, that the Election Commission did have a meeting this evening. The chair is present with us, and the meeting was continued for this Thursday at 5:30 with the hope, based on a motion from the chair, to have somebody from the Secretary of State's office there and the solicitor's office present. We had the council will remember, and certain members of the public will remember, our voting rights expert, Professor Pursley. He joined us this evening as well for the Election Commission meeting, and we would seek to have him available this coming Thursday as well. And finally, to have somebody from LHS who runs our voting machines. So there was a discussion tonight. Part of the discussion that we had tonight was to really walk through what we're looking at in terms of timing in light of the fact that we will not have the census data available to us. And in particular, the option that we looked at was this suggestion of dividing the district into 2 and having sub-districts, not precincts, but sub-districts. The only way we can have a sub-district, again, is change the law. Now, if we were to do that, and we were to go to the federal court, one of the things that we began to talk about is, how do you divide the district? If the districts are going to be divided, there should be a standard way of dividing all of these districts. Would you divide them in half geographically by size? Would you divide them based on population? Would you divide them based on some sort of, natural geographic feature, such as the river? And some of these, to divide them, may result in an unwanted result. So if you look at, for example, District 4, the part of the concern that has been raised from residents, from voters, from elected officials, election commissioners, and others has been the idea of having to cross the river. If you were to take District 4 and cut it in half, you actually would have more people having to cross the river in order to get to the other side than what you're looking at right now, possibly, again, depending on how you seek to do it. If you look at, say, the Riley School, and you were to divide District 3, I think it is, but the Belvedere district, you could have the greatest number of voters having to leave their traditional voting location and going to this other side of this district. Somebody, Dave Willett, had mentioned the acre. Well, the last time that there was an election, the acre voted in at Lowell High School. This time, the centrally located polling location is at the Senior Center, which is actually closer to them. And then you look at some others, say like the Daly and the Bailey, there's absolutely no difference at all in terms of an actual polling location there. And the same with, there's another one which is separated by maybe a mile. But one of the other, so you'd really have to dive into the weeds here as to how you're going to go about dividing these districts. We would have to have a discussion. The council would be involved in that, obviously, because it would involve amending the consent decree, and the plaintiffs would be involved. And we'd have to come to a consensus as to how best to do that, how best to serve voters if you're going to create a second location. The other issue that we talked about is really just the timing. And just to sort of quickly walk us through that, in order to post 20 days before the first election event, we would be looking at September 1st. So we would have to have the polling locations in place by the end of August in order to do that posting. But we also have to have notices that go out, and there are some things, like, say, translation, RFP seeking a printer, that we could do now, and we would be doing now. We would be doing it right now. But one of the things that we can't do until we decide, until the Election Commission confirms where these polling locations are going to be, is to send that final document to the printer. And generally that takes another couple of weeks, which would bring us to mid-August. So if we were to pursue amending the consent decree, we'd really be looking at about a month to hire an expert, determine a method of dividing a district, working with the plaintiffs, and seeking emergency relief from the court. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect that the Election Commission would need to tackle in the election office is, and I think Jeff Foster had alluded to this, but our VRIS voting system. Changes needed to be made because of these 8 districts, and about 25,000 voters had to be, the election office manually changed that information for 25,000 voters. That took about a month and a half to do. What we'd be looking at doing now is manually going in and changing 64,000 voters. This was something that we did mention to the Secretary of State's office either last week or the week before. Anytime you do that, one of the things we have to be mindful of is introducing human error into this process. If you're going to be doing this 64,000 times, and it's going to be a manual function, that should be and would be a concern. The other, obviously, is time. Now, we can, and I know the manager is more than willing to reach out to the Secretary of State's office and see what we can do in terms of added assistance in getting that work done. But I can tell you, in order to do the 25,000, one of the things that we had explored with the Secretary of State's office was hiring LHS to assist with that process, to make it go quicker. And that was not something that they were willing to do. These are done on state computers. They typically, don't accept volunteers, but again, these are conversations we can have. One of the things that we have to be mindful of, though, is that all of these avenues that we continue to pursue move us further and further away from a definite path and from really beginning to tackle the process of getting out the notices, getting things in place, working with all the different partners that the election office has traditionally worked with. Jeff Foster, when he was with UTEC, they were invaluable, not just in terms of helping to round up extra poll workers, have volunteers for the election office, but even so far as helping us send out cards and notices to let people know what was going on. But all of those things take time. And one other thing that I would mention that really just cannot be emphasized enough is the action that the City Council took to move forward on a home rule petition is probably the single biggest tool that would enable voters and give them the greatest amount of flexibility, the greatest amount of convenience, and access to voting. And we fully expect that it will, in fact, pass. If it does, Lowell will be just one of a handful of communities that will be able to offer that to your residents. And I just think that the public really should know about that as much as possible.
Well, let me just say this. Imagine some years ago, if you can remember, we had 11 wards and 33 precincts. We've narrowed it down to 8, and we're saying that it's difficult. I don't know how difficult it would be to cut the 33 precincts down to half, which would make it 16. That would be 2 per district. And I know that time is of the essence, but if we don't do anything, it'll never happen. So I would say, what is the harm in trying to approach the judge, the federal judge, and ask, is there a way that you can help us speed things up to get, maybe it wouldn't happen this year, but maybe it would happen in the next election, so that at least we're getting somewhere.
Madam Manager.
Thank you. I think that's a good point and a good suggestion. We can certainly have to go to the plaintiffs and work with them and with the judge in how they envision this to work. And at the same time, the other big issue is input of the data that took a month and a half for 24,000 voters. We would need permission from the Secretary of State's office to bring on other additional people just to physically get that done. So we could explore both of those options in the near term,
If you could
and then
explore them, sure.
report back to the council.
I'd like
I think I agree with you. Time is of the essence here. And that's the whole point, is not to overly complicate, but just to let people know all these steps. And what we don't want to do is come up short against that deadline, the end of August, where we are required on September 1st to post these polling locations and not have it. That would be a disaster if we don't have those answers in time. And more importantly, in advance, so that everybody can be advised and we can do mailings and so forth. So if the solicitor's in agreement, that seems to me to make sense. Reach out to the plaintiffs, reach out to the federal court, and also to the Secretary of State.
And I hope that people and residents in the city and voters know that this is a change, and it's not an easy thing to get to. And we never knew till the last minute that there'd be 1 polling place per district. Now that we know that and we're not happy with it, we have to do something to change it. Maybe it won't happen this time, and I'm sorry about that. But at least if we put the wheels in motion and try, so that one day we'll have it all together, and I hope it isn't too late, that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott, and then Councilor Conway.
Thank you for the information. I concur, I'm willing to make that amendment. I don't know if the motion was made, but that we do pursue those 2 avenues. Madam Manager, I feel it's imperative that we leave no stone unturned. And we've got it all up our sleeves. It's going to be a lot of work. We have some tight time frames. Timing is of the essence, but the very basics of democracy is at stake here. And I think it's important to go to the plaintiffs, because we're just talking about one election. We need to put a system in place that is convenient and locations for the future. I mean, if we do nothing now, I think it's a disservice, but it also will have an effect in the future. I know that the census data will also come after that, and then, we could be redrawing the districts, but this is the election that we're dealing with, and I don't know if you need that in the form of an amendment or a motion to request the manager and solicitor reach out to the plaintiffs, as well as the Secretary of State's office, and report back with findings. My understanding that the plaintiffs have already been in discussion, and there might be a willingness to do this. So,
Madam Manager.
Yeah, no, we certainly can follow up with that, tomorrow with on both fronts, and then, obviously come back to the council with the update, and if need be, call a special meeting if there's further action that needs to be taken. I do think that it's important that we get that. The other part, not to add further, is once we do have the 2020 data, which is where we work in conjunction with the state to set up the new precincts, to set up obviously the new boundaries of the 8 districts if they have to be changed, then that would be done to reflect the most recent census data. In some of the preliminary conversations that we've had over the summer with the Secretary's office about what could those new districts look like, and this has to be done in conjunction with the legislature. One of the suggestions, one of the mappings was to come up with, for the 8 districts, 4 precincts, so that there would be 32 precincts when we were finished with the whole process. That obviously can't be done now because we don't have the 2020 census data, but that's one possibility for the next year's election, which will be a state election. So whatever we're doing now is temporary. Going down the road will be a much more permanent solution once that 2020 census data is available. So just, and I understand this is a new system and it's going to be a learning curve for everybody, but just so people understand, this what we're doing is temporary until we are able to work through all of the new data with the Commonwealth, with the legislature, with the Secretary's office, which is a normal re-precincting process that happens every 10 years. And we expect that may be finished maybe November, maybe December. It's hard to say at this point.
All set? Councilor Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the speakers for being here tonight and weighing in. I heard the frustration, and that's why I actually put a motion on. It's 2 more motions down, and that is the requesting the city manager report on the feasibility of retaining a minimum of the 14 voting locations that were available to the residents during the 2019 election with the intention of increasing voter turnout. I think that says it, and I'll be very brief here. The fact is that that motion was put on because of the frustration, telephone calls, people that talk to me, and basically echoing exactly what these people here have been talking about. So I think it's incumbent on us to do the best we possibly can to make this work, and again to increase the voter turnout, and realizing that you've got the legalities that are involved, you've got a time factor that's involved. My only concern would be where there has to be some type of a cutoff point too, because of the fact that people I talk with, time and time again, they voice their frustration, they voice their concern, they voice the fact that they're confused with this voting situation, just as it is. And they've asked questions, a number of questions on it. So, and again, we've been talking about this on the in executive session on the floor, making sure that we can educate and give as much information to the voter as possible. So my concern that I do have is if this comes up short, what we're talking about here, what is the plan going forward to still get that information out to the system that we have already put into place? That's my concern. In other words, I just don't want to wake up one morning and say, well, we tried and we can't do it, but yet we also have 62,000 voters out there that are confused on what they're going to do at this point. So listen, I don't envy the team putting this or trying to put it together. I think it's very important. And the home rule petition, you know, we put a home rule petition on through a motion to have the signatures go from 150 down to 50 so that more individuals could run for office. That was put on a number of weeks ago, and it's my understanding that they're not going to be, that's not going to come forward, and it's not going to come forward before the election. So, you know, again, I think we have to put all those pieces together, but at the end of the day, I think there is that frustration, and we want to try to do the best we can. And if we can expand these polling places, locations, I think it's a great idea if we possibly can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and, thank you to the speakers, and look, everybody agrees, if possible, we should, at least double the polling locations. They've seen council motions on it, you've seen people speak about it, you've seen the council speak on it. But just to try to be a little bit of a realist, just time-wise, right? The best case scenario with going to the plaintiffs, because I don't think a home petition is even possible. It cannot be done because of our time frame. The best case scenario is next Tuesday, there's an agreement in place with the plaintiffs to go to 2 districts. At that point in time, we're 40 days away from having to submit a plan. We still have to go to the Secretary of State, and then I guess the question would be to the solicitor or the manager is it even feasible to have 64,000 voter names changed in 5 weeks, in 6 weeks? I don't want to set us up for disaster come September 1st if we can't get it done, and then we're really stuck with no plan at all. So I guess that would be my first question.
If the answer was what it was the last time, to use just the staff from the election office to access the state computer, the answer would be no. That, as I said, it took a month to get 24,000 inputted. We would need to have permission to have additional people assist, and that we would have to get from the Secretary of State. It's their computers, so.
And again, I wish we could get to 2 locations. I think it's just the best possible plan. But even if you triple the staff, you have to hire and train and those things as well. And again, I'll support Councilor Elliott and Councilor Mercier's motion to see what we can do. But I just want to make sure that people understand how heavy a task this would be, and just to make sure that the council administration, I feel for the election commission. They have a very difficult job, they're in a very tough spot. They have heard from the same people that we have heard from, and ultimately it'd be up to them to decide, the locations and how we do it. And I just don't want it to set up for a disaster of us putting every effort forward to make it work, but then falling short. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we're all set on this one. Everyone's in favor of the motion, obviously. I'll say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Next motion, Councilor Elliott requests manager contact Pan Am Railways to inspect and paint railroad bridges at Lawrence, Billerica Streets, and Gorham Street, as well as signage update to prevent trucks from hitting the bridge. Seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Elliott.
The motion speaks for itself. It came from the neighborhood organization. The bridges are an eyesore to the neighborhood, and who knows if they have been inspected. Perhaps they are. But I think it'd be important to reassure the neighbors that they are inspected and they should be repainted. And if the signs are going to remain, which they should, Spaghettiville, and they should look appropriate. So that's the motion, Madam Manager. I know your experience with Pan Am and our experience is a struggle, but hopefully they will respond and provide the improvement and the information. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next one, 11-4, Councilor Conway requests city manager report on the feasibility of retaining minimum 14 voting locations that are available to residents during the 2019 election with the intention of increasing voter turnout. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Conway.
I think we've already discussed it. Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Councilor Conway requests city manager meet with the LPD and other appropriate city departments and our city partners to develop a plan for a citywide campaign that will address vehicle traffic, pedestrian safety on the streets of our neighborhood. Seconded by Councilor Mercier. Councilor Conway.
There's a registered speaker here via Zoom. Laura Gilmore.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Just state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and Madam Manager. My name is Laura Gilmore, and I live at 555 Andover Street. Thanks to Councilor Conway for this motion. I wanted to say that my comments tonight also likely apply to Councilor Samaras' similar motion about speed limits in addition to this motion. As a constituent who has previously spoken up about safety and excessive speed on residential streets, I appreciate that this topic is being raised again in several motions tonight. I wanted to note that there are 7 or 8 different motions about transportation and traffic calming on the agenda tonight, and the sheer number of motions shows that this issue needs to be addressed in a more holistic way. I appreciate this motion because I think a citywide approach is needed rather than trying to respond to individual locations through council motions. I know you are all concerned about a key staffing vacancy right now, but I'm here to ask that in spite of that, you continue to address this issue comprehensively, including multiple departments, and to think a little bigger about the solutions. There are ways to address speeding and safety, and I do think that LPD should be part of those efforts, but I wanted to make the suggestion that I don't think LPD should be the primary department to respond to this. This is a planning and an engineering issue. Enforcement is important, but it's only one piece of the puzzle, and streets need to be safe on the days when there isn't a cop parked on the corner as well. In addition to enforcement, you also need to think about making changes to some streets. The topic of speed and safety comes up at almost every meeting, and because of that, I'd like to recommend that you consider establishing some sort of formal citywide traffic calming program, like several other cities and towns in Massachusetts have done to comprehensively address these issues. This would give you a way to address the issues that keep coming up, and it would be a fair approach since staff could help prioritize the highest priority locations citywide. You wouldn't be able to do everything at once, but this would be a way to help residents feel like their issues are being addressed and to see progress without having to come back to City Council every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we? Councilor Conway?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Laura Gilmore for her comments. I mean, they're certainly right on target. I want to say that I've been sitting at this desk for approximately 12 years, 8 years as a school committee person, 4 years as a city council, and I can honestly say that this is perhaps one of the most important motions that I have ever filed. There is a difference, and we've talked about it numerous times here, as the speaker just mentioned too, is that we've had so many different issues dealing with traffic and dealing with violations, street violations. And, you know, there is a difference between a plan, and we certainly have all dealt with plans, and we've put plans together. But a plan really provides an overall strategy over a period of time to solve an issue. I think whereas a campaign is a focused, tactical initiative to achieve a specific goal, and in this case, it's to make our streets and neighborhoods a safer environment for all the citizens of Lowell. As I said, our present councilors, former councilors, we've all put motions on the agenda addressing the speeding and the reckless driving, distracted drivers, individuals that do not adhere to street signage, individuals that that actually pass stopping the stop buses with the sign out there and they go right through it. As I said to someone the other day, there must have been an angel on this little girl's shoulder back a few months ago. She was probably about 8 years old, and an individual just flew right by, and I don't know what made it happen, but she just stopped. She never would have survived that. That person was speeding. So I think that, again, we have brought forward a number of plans, and this, I'm suggesting that when we meet after a meeting, the possible way we could make our streets safer is, and the problem was going to continue, and I looked over my motions in the last 3 years, and it's amazing. The last 3 years on the council, 41.3% of my motions address traffic and safety, street safety. That's incredible when you think about it. And I would assume that many of the councilors here have similar statistics. I want to give you one quick example. Over the holiday, over the 4th, I was fortunate enough to have my family over, and it was a Sunday afternoon. It was around 1 or 2 o'clock, and we had 8 adults and 4 children on the porch. And everybody's having a wonderful time. Traffic was rather slow. And here, I'm on Andover Street, and a car comes down, not on the inbound lane, but in the turning lane. And right next to that person on the outgoing lane was a car coming down, and they were racing. I had 7 adults there. They estimated the speed at somewhere between 75 and 80 miles an hour. Those 2 cars were going down there. If somebody came out of Wentworth Avenue and took a right, or in Luce Street, or in Buttman Road, they would never have survived. So I think looking at this, I'm saying to myself, we need something more. We need something more. We can't put all this on the shoulders of the police or the city manager's office. But what we need is we need a campaign that's going to bring everybody together. And there's one thing the city of Lowell can do, is that when we get together and we bring our partners and we bring our different individuals and groups together, we can succeed. And I think this is extremely important for this city, because people over and over and over are talking about the problems in the streets. With speeding and a whole variety of other things. So I think this citywide campaign, we could include, obviously, the police, the Middlesex Sheriff, the RMV, District Attorney, the courts, the business community, the nonprofits, DPW, neighborhood groups, and also our educational institution, university, Middlesex, and also Lowell Public Schools. The state police, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and the city solicitor's office. Those are just a few that I decided to put down here, because these are the stakeholders. I do believe that a group like this can help solve the problem in this city. And by bringing these people together and working as a task force, I think we could make the city of Lowell a role model for this nation if we go in this direction. Some of the ideas, and I just put them down very quickly, and I'll just share a few of them. You know, we could actually, as one individual suggested, maybe even bring in an advertising agency that targets street safety. And I guess supposedly there's agencies that actually exist that do that. Perhaps we could look into some of the successful programs that are in place. One of them is Vision Zero, which started apparently in Europe area and all over Europe, and now it's coming to this country. And their goal is to increase safety and to cut down on traffic fatalities and severe injuries. That's the goal. The program, which I love the sound of this, obey the sign or pay the fine. It's as simple as that. And one thing I want to emphasize is we need to get the courts at that table. I think it's important. The district attorney. Educational programs, social media, and the other thing, I contacted an individual and they discussed the speed signs. We see them, and I think, Madam Manager, do we have like 3 or 4 of them in the city right now, the speed signs?
Do you mean the boards?
Right.
Yeah, we have a few of them. I'm looking
Okay.
at the.
Well, it's, the update on this apparently is that they have these speed signs now that the newer ones collect all the traffic data so that you examine it and you can find out when the speeding is actually taking place. You can also find out what the actual speed is and also the traffic. And what a police officer has said to me, actually a chief said to me, what we're doing is we're able to target specific areas, which I think is great. Instead of just guessing on where there might be some problems, they get a telephone call and say, by the way, so-and-so is, somebody's speeding on this street or that street, and the police will go over and to take a look at it. Well, I think right here, with that data in front of us, I think it's extremely important because it can save time and certainly save lives. So I will stop there, but the last thing I will say is, how do we pay for this? You know, maybe perhaps through the Shannon grant, if there's monies available there, if we can utilize them. We have our grant writer now, and there's this STEP account. And Madam Manager, we talked about that briefly the other day. It's my understanding that the traffic fines, when there's a traffic fine, half goes to the state and half goes to the city. Out of that half that goes to the city, half of that goes to the STEP program, which allows our police officers to go out and deal with traffic issues. So again, it's a win-win. I'll stop right there, but and I'm sorry to take as much time, but I really think this is such an important thing because, you know, we're talking about saving lives. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion, Councilor Mercier request city manager to discuss parking with parking director about offering a group discount to courthouse employees for the early garage and the new Hamilton Canal garage.
Thank you, Mr.
Seconded
Mayor.
by Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion more or less speaks for itself, except for the fact I'd just like to add that there is such a thing as a group discount rate, and they give that to residents as well. And I think that people that are, you know, having a steady, you know, money coming into for this garage, and I'm concerned about the early garage and the new Hamilton Canal garage. These are the two that are frequented quite often by the people that work at the courthouse. So if you could put that down, Madam Manager, I want to just know if I talked to Terry Ryan and asked him about it. He said that it could be possible to do that because they pay $96 a month for the garage, and the group rate would bring it down to $72. You know, they don't make a lot of money at the courthouse unless you're probably the judge or the lawyers, but the people, the employees that work there.
Probation, I hear.
There you go, especially Danny Rourke. Look at the poor bugger. Let's give him a break. But I'm also concerned if you could check into what does the Lowell Community Health Center employees pay? Because I do know the answer. What do the charter school teachers pay per month? And I like the council to know that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on this motion? So it's just, you want to abstain? Okay. So all in favor of the motion, say aye. Noted. Yes. All right. Next motion, Councilor Mercier requests city manager have proper department put a four-way stop sign at the intersection of Lincoln, Washington, and Angel Streets. If not justified, place a no parking here to corner sign on all corners in the intersection. Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really would like a four-way stop sign at that intersection. Very, very dangerous. The people are at wit's end for a long time, and nothing seems to be done. If we could have someone go over and talk to the residents there, you will know that it's justified. And rather than do nothing, see if they would want a sign, no parking here to corner. I don't know if that might help if they won't go the four-way. Something needs to be done, and that's better than nothing, so thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion, Councilor Mercy requests city manager provide installing special safety measures, police enforcement for speeding on Aberdeen, Beacon, Christian Streets, as well as 6th and 7th Avenue. Seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Mercia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can see, again, here's another area of the city that has speeding going on. This was at the request of many neighbors on these particular streets, Aberdeen, Beacon, Christian, as well as I'm putting in there 6th and 7th Avenue because they are really speeding up those streets. I won't go into it. I think Councilor Conway handled it very eloquently, but if you could put these streets into the mix, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion tonight, Councilor Mercier requests city manager provide council with the city's vision, direction, and guidance for what the future for downtown Lowell, the heart of the city is. Seconded by Councilor Chow. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I present this motion, please know that I blame no one for what I am about to say with respect to this motion on the downtown. For quite some time, I have felt that the downtown seemed to be heading in a downward spiral, but it wasn't until people were in town to attend a wake and funeral that I felt compelled to bring this issue to light. What I heard from the many visitors who once lived in Lowell was, what happened to the downtown? It's a mess. Empty storefronts, people sleeping on benches, hardly anyone walking downtown, and the few that are walking have to dodge bicycles and skateboarders, despite signs saying it's prohibited, as well as the diners that are enjoying sidewalk scenery with bikes flying by at an alarming rate. What happened to our city, they asked. Sorry to say I felt hurt. I was embarrassed, but they were right. What did happen to Lowell? What happened to society? Now I wondered, what can we do about it? How can we improve or correct our little center of the world, our center of the city? Or should we say nothing and pretend that the problems do not exist? Sorry to say that if I had an innovative product and the money to open a business in the downtown, would I? With empty storefronts on either side of me, and who knows if when I come to open my store, will I find someone sleeping in the doorway or shooting up or relieving themselves? I do not want to take that chance. I would look elsewhere. According to what I read recently in the newspaper, the Convention and Visitors Bureau moved from Market Street to University Avenue, a long way from the downtown. Just like years ago, the Lowell plan was in Kearny Square, but now it's on Suffolk Street in the Wanalancet Mill buildings. And the sun is moving to Westford. Who's next? Edible fruit is gone like so many others on a daily basis. On Friday, July 9th, CVS closed and moved all their prescriptions to the CVS on Bridge Street. So much for the walk across the bridge for the elderly person with a walker. It has gone the way of 2 polling places in one district, which that will probably never happen either. I say whatever reason CVS moved, I heard from an inside source that shoplifting was more than they could handle. They couldn't survive in the downtown with their continued losses. Dental offices are relocating. There's talk about the Olympia moving or closing soon. Again, who's next? I appreciate the innovative, creative ideas such as painting murals on buildings and wonderful artwork designs on Jersey outside seating barriers, but will that sustain the downtown? Will that revitalize the heart of this city? I think not, but it is a start. Even hiring 2 co-response clinicians to ride along with the police to aid the homelessness is an idea and a good start, but will it be enough? We need to put our collective minds together. We need to reassess our plan, our vision. We need to market the city in a new direction. I bring this motion to you because I love this city and I don't want to see it fail. I don't have all the answers. I don't have a solution, but I will not sit back and accept this and pretend that no problem exists. Just like addiction, before you can get clean, you must admit you have a problem. Just like the downtown, we have a problem. We must admit it, and now we are asking for help. That is what this motion is for. We must remember that the downtown is not just businesses, it's about a neighborhood, the heart of the city, and the arteries of this heart reaches out to other neighborhoods. Let us not let the broken window syndrome become 2 and 3 broken windows. Let's contact the downtown building owners and ask them, why are your buildings empty? Are you asking too much rent? Are you receiving an even greater tax break because it's more beneficial for you to leave the building empty? Similar to the unemployment being higher than the pay you would receive for working. Help me understand what's happening so we can fix it. The laws today are becoming so weak that the victims have no say. Needles are overpowering our city and the downtown. Years ago, possessing these needles was a violation of the law. Today, they are not. Sleeping in the parks. There was a time that being in the park from dusk to dawn was a violation. Today, people live in the park, whether it's Kerouac Park or the South Common. I'm not bringing this up to hurt anyone or that I don't love my city. I want this city to shine. I want people to come here and say, wow, what a city. It got better. It was an amazing place to visit. I'd like to suggest forming an ad hoc commission comprised of business owners from the downtown, residents, bank officials, anyone from the downtown that feels that they can contribute to the vision, and anyone with ideas. Let's start today to begin our journey with a vision of what direction we choose to follow and the guidance from everyone. I hope I didn't offend anybody, but I'm telling it like it is, and I'm sorry if I did, but that's how I feel.
Thank you. We have registered speakers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Deb Belanger.
Deb Belanger, 65 La Plume Avenue in Pawtucketville. Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Madam Manager, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on Councilor Mercier's motion. I have been impressed with how much the city worked in partnership with so many organizations during the pandemic, assisting and guiding businesses throughout the city, and also keeping them informed of state guidelines. We have never, ever experienced anything of this magnitude in our lifetime. I consider us to be in a recovery mode from 16 months of pretty much being shut down. As the former executive director of the Greater Merrimack Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau, in my 25 years in marketing the city of Lowell, I'm here to offer my assistance and support. I feel it is extremely important to have a vision and to have a plan to help revitalize and re-energize the downtown area. One component, just one component of that plan needs to be a 5-year advertising and public relations campaign. This campaign could possibly be funded by the American Relief Fund over a 5-year time frame at a cost of $2 million. Keep in mind, in early 2000, the city of Lowell had a very successful "There's a Lot to Like About Lowell" campaign. We need to go back to a campaign like that. If my memory serves me correctly, we spent over $1 million. This generated visitors and residents alike to our arts and entertainment venues, the national parks, the Spinners games, the hockey games, festivals, as well as our retail and restaurant establishments. Part of the plan included a partnership with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. The CVB worked closely with the city, the arena, and the auditorium, both city-owned buildings at the time, to increase conventions and high-profile sporting events that generated revenue back to the city through rooms tax, meals tax, sales tax, and not to mention parking revenue. These events also increase the visibility and the hospitality to all of the convention attendees, spectators, and athletes. You might remember World Curling. You might remember the National Rowing Championships. You might remember the Great Race. Those 3 events alone brought in excess of $5 million. We were truly a destination city. We also were an all-American city. There was so much pride in our city. The art community was very, very instrumental in revitalizing our efforts. And I am pleased to see Councilor Drinkwater's motion tonight on murals and using local artists in these endeavors. The past teaches us about the present, and no doubt a campaign now will recognize and revitalize Lowell, Massachusetts as a proud, diverse city to live, work, and play. Everybody knows, I was born here, I was raised here. This city is one of the most beautiful cities that I have ever seen, and we need to promote what we have, and we need to take baby steps, and we will work through the results. And I say this is the result of the pandemic, while all of us were home, isolated in our houses for so long. So now it's time to get out and have fun and enjoy our city. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yep, Richard Healy.
My name is Richard Healy. I own the Keep on 110 Gorham Street in Lowell. And this is in response to the meeting that the Lowell Police Department put on in the neighborhood of the downtown area that I was happy enough to be at. And Councilman Mercer, you were there, and I want to thank you for bringing this up. 5 years ago, I basically started planning to open my business in the city. I'm from Lowell, went to grade school in Lowell. I'm the oldest of 7. The majority of us are still in Lowell. My brother just opened a deli in Lowell. If I could think back 5 years of the excitement I had of opening up a business in Lowell, I don't think I really have that excitement now so much about running a business in Lowell, to be perfectly honest with you. I love the city, but it makes it hard to really enjoy your city when your general manager gets jumped by 8 junkies that are just at your kitchen door, when you have to actually wipe off human excrement from your foot when you walk into your own business. Now, those are things that I didn't think I'd have to really deal with opening up a small business in Lowell. I can't imagine anyone really would. And when I talk to peers who operate similar businesses outside the city, in cities as well, Lawrence, Lynn, anything else, I know that they express an optimism that I wish I shared right now. And again, I'm a bar owner. I don't have any answers. I would love to be that smart, to be able to tell you what the solution is to obviously a gigantic problem that was in existence before the pandemic and was, I mean, if we're just talking about the junkies, was an epidemic prior to this. And I don't know the financial situation of the city in terms of money coming in, money going out, or anything that we're getting from the Sackler family that just got sued. But again, I'd like to have at least, I'd like to feel like there's a bit of a weight off my shoulders and I can attract people from not just within the city, but outside the city in order to keep my business running. I love the city, and the city has come in a massive positive direction in so many ways. But this is a gigantic challenge. And a silver lining of the pandemic was that a lot of small business owners got together on Zoom calls that Christine was nice enough to put on, the LDFC put on, and we all kind of share this anxiety and this stress. When the owner of Mill Number 5 comes on after we've sat through something where I believe it was a state agency or consultant that was paid to grade our sidewalks, and he goes, "That's great, you know, this should work for my business very well, but how do I keep people from defecating on the entrance?" And that's Mill Number 5. It's like innovative, cool business that is so much more than just one business. And everybody on the call just nods their heads. It's fantastic that we can grade the sidewalks based on lights, condition of them, vacant storefronts, outdoor seating, and everything else. But it means nothing if people driving by, visiting the cities, see two people passed out at noon, not in a back alley, but on a main city because of their horrible sickness of addiction. And it's terrible, too, that then people drive by and they see people who are overdosing and ambulances picking them up. Again, I don't know the solution. And I imagine that COVID has exacerbated all of this, considering the shutdown and the fact that it was just difficult to get around people suffering from even a minor sickness because you didn't know what exactly you could get. But there needs to be something done. There needs to be something done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine Regut.
Hi, my name is Catherine Rago. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I was invited by Councilor Mercier last week at the police neighborhood meeting downtown to speak on her motion requesting the city manager provide the council with the city's vision, direction, and guidance for what is the future for downtown Lowell, the heart of the city. Councilor Mercier had a great deal to say about downtown Lowell at this neighborhood meeting last Thursday. I do not agree with the bleak picture she painted of scared residents huddling inside because there's no one but addicts and homeless people crowding empty storefronts. I love this city, and I'm happy to show out-of-town friends all the art, music, and great food that can be found here. I walk the canals and enjoy the green spaces and river walks daily. I thought trash-talking the city and grandstanding to make a campaign event out of a neighborhood meeting was disappointing and inappropriate behavior that did not reflect well on either the council or the council member. Scapegoating the homeless is not the answer. People experiencing homelessness are forced to live their crisis in public, and I can only imagine how deeply humiliating and exhausting it is to try and survive as they do. Did you all have a clean and private place to use the restroom this morning for free? Many people living downtown do not. I understand that Lowell is working on a long-term Housing First initiative that is very promising. However, what plans are there to address the urgent, everyday needs of people living on the streets? Where are the public restrooms? Where is the signage directing people there? Business owners have full plates trying to survive in this climate, and they deserve real solutions to the problems that they face. Restaurant and gallery owners shouldn't have to clean human waste from their doorways. Food service workers shouldn't be forced to confront individuals in crisis to try to keep businesses safe and comfortable for their patrons. Where is the consensus on this council to address those needs? As for the future for downtown Lowell, the heart of the city, I enjoy beautiful downtown Lowell every day. And frankly, the people experiencing homelessness are not the problem for me. They are a symptom of a broken system. I would like to see a future for downtown where sidewalks are accessible year-round, trash cans are emptied when they are full, and the City Council champions local businesses and supports the arts. I dream of a city where noise ordinances are enforced, where people can live with dignity, where children feel safe in schools, and Black Lives Matter. It feels particularly tone-deaf for Councilor Mercier to be asking for a plan for the future of downtown Lowell when she's had over 20 years in power to improve it. I see a future for Lowell where the City Council represents my neighborhood. What I heard Thursday made me feel like she doesn't like this city very much, so I think it's time to make a change. Lowell deserves representation from councilors who will amplify all the voices of their constituents and bring solutions to this chamber. May I ask that my comments be submitted for the record? My written comments?
They are, but, yep.
Who do I give them to?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is there another registered speaker? All right, thank you. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor? Sure. Madam Manager?
Thank you. We will get a full report for the council, for the community. I know Christine McCall is here. Earlier tonight, we referred the rapid recovery plan for downtown. That's in process right now. And I just want to assure everybody there's been a lot that's been happening. We do have our challenges. No one's trying to hide that at all. But the planning and development has been working very hard, holding many meetings, both with business owners, and it's laid out in the report that Christine McCall gave earlier. Surveys of businesses, there's over 600 businesses that are being surveyed and talked to find out what they need. Yes, it is trying to respond to the pandemic and to come up with a plan in the short term. How do we help these businesses? I do want to stress that there have been several businesses that actually opened during the pandemic, and I give them great credit. They have a lot of courage. You know, a few weeks back, Christine, myself, the police chief visited 4 of them on an afternoon just to see how they were doing, and they're brave, they are dedicated, and they're not shutting their doors. And so, you know, but that's not to say there aren't challenges. We know there are, but we do have a lot that's happening. There's also, you know, other things happening in terms of the cultural economy plan that the Community Foundation is working on with a grant from the Bar Foundation, and how are we going to bring back the cultural economy? So, and again, of course, the homelessness task force and the housing initiative is a major issue as far as we're moving forward in the challenges. So there isn't an easy answer, but there's a lot of work that's being done. And so, and it could very well be that the American Recovery Plan Act may offer some ability to use some resources to address some of these challenges that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise had, because let's face it, the impact of the pandemic was felt very hard by our businesses and our residents, and especially in and around the downtown. And if you look at the American Recovery Plan Act, that's what monies are intended to do. So these are, again, things that as a council and community we need to look at and come up with a plan that's going to support and sustain in a go forward. So good motion. We will certainly have a full plan explaining all that's being done, all that we plan to do. And we welcome the input of community members as well, because it has to be everybody in the community that's going to work together on this.
Madam Mayor, Madam Manager, do we know why the buildings are empty, the storefronts are empty? What is the reason for that? Is it because they're asking for too much rent, or?
I think it would depend on the building. I mean, we're actually pre-pandemic now. We're kind of net neutral on numbers because some closed and some opened. So there hasn't really been change, but there's been the one that you mentioned, CVS closed. I think there's a number of, so I think it depends building to building. You know, there may be some landlords that are not investing in their properties and their tenants are walking because of that. You know, we certainly want to work with landlords as well because they have to be part of the solution too. I don't think that we have had great luck bringing landlords, especially out of town LLC landlords, to the table, even when we've tried to reach out to them to find out. Doesn't mean we don't continue to try, but a lot of them are just real estate investments and not necessarily invested in their tenants or in the city. And, you know, that's the kind of ownership structure that some of them, not all of them, but that's some of them that we're facing. So it makes it a little more challenging, especially when you don't have a local landlord to deal with and to talk to and hear from. It doesn't mean we won't stop trying, though.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion tonight, Council Samaras requests city manager have property department research or develop various methods to better control speeding within the city limits. Seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Council Samaras?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was a motion previously to my end, but I'd like to take the opportunity to explain why I put this motion in place. When you read it, it read simply to have the city manager look into how we can solve this problem. But my original motion was emotion-laden with words because I've been so frustrated, like so many of us as city councilors, about traffic in Lowell. The thing is, when you go back historically, before Route 3 was expanded, in 93 and 495 was built, if you travel through Lowell, of course there are far less cars than there are today, but there was the neighborhood officer walking the neighborhood streets. You had patrol cars, you know, many patrol cars patrolling the areas. But you also had the Registry of Motor Vehicles officers many days out of a month checking on cars going by. You also, on the state roads, had state police officers monitoring traffic. And this is when there was much less traffic. But we know Lowell has become a cut-through city. When you look at it, one thing about Lowell, we're fortunate because we're between Route 3, 495, and 93. It's economically good for the city of Lowell. But these highways have also provided dangerous situations that we have in Lowell, or in other words, created problems. What kind of danger? Okay, let's look at some of the things. Over the years, when construction sites are set up, whether they're located in Lowell or outside the city, we have large construction trucks cutting through our neighborhoods, endangering our children, going around schools, in school areas. And it usually takes us several months to get something done. Many councils will make motions depending on the neighborhood that they've talked about or where they might come from. And what happens is when the construction is over and we've discussed how we'll handle the problem, there is no more trucks coming through the area. But we have to be able to deal with what goes on with construction. We want to see construction, but we also don't want to see large trucks using our neighborhood streets as cut-throughs. The last meeting, there were 3 councils asked for 4-way stop signs. It was said that the state wouldn't allow those. I myself had a motion regarding Aiken Avenue and the speeding on Aiken Avenue. And right after the meeting, I had many calls from the neighbors that I had been speaking to on what are we doing about Aiken Avenue, as an example. We also have problems in Lowell from teenagers on bikes that are doing wheelies in the downtown. Just the other day, I was coming to City Hall to get something, and there was at least 15 youngsters on bikes going through the downtown. They were cutting through the traffic with reckless abandon, and I actually had one youth on one wheel come by while the front of his bike rode the hood of my car. Now, the thing is, I can understand some of these things that happen, but you could have somebody in a car that could get so outraged by it, might try to do something that would be very harmful and very bad. Now, we do not want to have, I do not see our policemen, we'll say, chasing 15 to 20 teenagers down the street. But something has to be done about that. The cut-throughs, something has to be done about that. The speeding that's going on. Many of our constituents have emailed us about the concerns, especially the middle lane on Andover Street. It's not a cut-through, it's not a turnaround street, it's a passing lane now. Myself, and what I try to do when I'm on that road, drive the speed limit. And I left Wentworth Avenue going down towards Tewksbury and the small shopping center at the end of Andover Street. There was a gentleman in a truck, no more than a foot away from my car. I mean, you knew he wanted to push through, push me out of the way. When we got to the small shopping center, I stopped and took a left, and he just cut around me, beeping his horn, giving me, we'll say, some gestures that were, we'll say, not appropriate, as he sped off, because I denied his right by being an obstacle to speed down Andover Street. But this is happening all over the city. Mr. Conway outlined his issues. We all, every city councilor has made so many motions, and Madam Manager, this is not an easy problem, you know that. We don't have enough policemen. I described a time, and I purposely described a time when there were less police, when there were less cars, but there were far more, we'll say, agencies that were able to deal with traffic in Lowell. And that was the registry with registry officers, state police with more officers, and our own patrolmen, and many more that were in the neighborhoods. We can't afford that, we don't have that. I don't have an answer. Some suggestions were made tonight. I've had many of our constituents give me suggestions, but when you look at something like, say, the city of Boston, Boston has a ruling, 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in all roads, except for those roads controlled by the state. Maybe that's something that we have to do in Lowell. We really have to look at the speed limits that we allow. And if we make these changes, then we have to have, whether you want to call it a plan, a campaign, or what have you, but we have to take the necessary steps to enforce them. It's all about enforcement. So my suggestion, one of my suggestions was that we create some type of commission with the police department, with the fire department because of their safety, the ambulance department because they use the roads, and the school bus companies, they have their problems, and our neighborhood leaders. But the thing is, I think the time has come, and what we're all looking for as city councilors, I mean, in a sense, it's almost like today performing a miracle. But how do we get back control of our streets? We've lost control of our streets. And the thing is, many city councils has used the term cut-throughs. We all know, because you can tell with New Hampshire plates, the cars cutting through. And what Lowell is an obstacle to them getting to work earlier. And and what they do is they use the streets to speed through or cut through or whatever. But I do know that the cut-throughs, whether in every neighborhood, the streets that are being used as cut-throughs are proving to be dangerous, and it's only a matter of time before we have some really serious accidents, especially of our children, during the school season. So this motion was made out of frustration. I wish I had answers and could say, Madam Manager, could you do this, this, and this? But I know how difficult it is, but we have to do something at this point. And some type of group that could be formed to really review what the motions that have been made by the city council, those streets that have proven to be dangerous, and how we deal with situations that you wish that there were a police officer in a cruiser to catch the person when they were doing what they're doing, or driving with the excess speed and driving, in a sense, to endanger. So there are a lot of our constituents that are out there that are frustrated by all of this. And as many have said to me, Mr. Counselor, what are you doing about it? So the question is, we have to lay it on your lap, so to speak, but we have to do something about control of traffic in the city of Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion by Councilor Samaras, request city manager provide a report on why a number of voting precincts has been eliminated, seconded by?
That's been addressed.
All right. Next motion, we're getting to 9:30, so we're gonna have to stick to the 5-minute rule for our motions, if we can just speed it up, because we're gonna get that 10 o'clock rule, so. Next motion tonight by Councilor Chow, request city manager investigate and correct malfunctioning HVAC system at the Morris School, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can always speak fast if you can read the motion faster, so I will rush this up. Around June 30th, I received a couple pictures of the thermostat from the Morris School. It read 96 degrees. This is during around the June 30th, the heat wave that we had there for about a week. And the Morris School, they have the summer schools for the 21st century program. And also the national parks have programs for the kids there as well. The school is fairly new. It's built in 2009, and the thermostat, the main HVAC thermostat or panel has been working for the last three or 4 years. Imagine it's almost like a central HVAC for a house. You have the main HVAC panel, but it's not all the other rooms, the other floors, they're not responding to the temperature read. So it works manually. You can only turn on the master panel on or off. And when it's on during the summer, you turn on for AC. Only 4 rooms in the school work. And a couple rooms is on the top floor, so the AC just escapes through the roofs and what have you. The rest of the room, especially the gym, is very, very hot. The staff have to send the kids home, not be able to complete the classes. And that works throughout the entire summer. And in the winter, it's just the opposite. You turn on the heat. Some room would work okay, and some room the heat would be on to 90 degrees, 96 degrees also. It could get very hot during the winter as well in some rooms, and the gym again. And some classrooms would have to open the windows in the middle of winter so that the heat can escape. That in itself is it's not cost savings. It wastes a lot of money. It's just bad for the environment. In general, I'm just asking through you, Mr. Mayor, to Madam Manager, if DPW could look at it. I know we spoke before. I don't know anything about HVAC. I don't know anything about control panel. But I know that the school spent about $70,000 on smart board, and I don't know how much it would cost to fix the HVAC master control panel, but I think many of the teachers and the students, the staff, they would have been happy spending the money on fixing the panel rather than getting the smart board. Just to offshoot of that, I'm having to look for a solution as well. You know, when trying to make it work, try to get the system to work. There was discussion a few months ago about the accelerated repair program, and I'm not quite sure if the Morey School would be on the list or. Go ahead, Madam Manager.
Yeah, they don't do air conditioning, they do heating, but for the accelerated repair program, and they have to be old. There's every year it changes, but this is our newest school, as you point out. But the good news is the city was awarded a Green Communities Competitive Grant, and part of the funding was you're correct in terms of the controls, and so we'll get you a report, but Commissioner Clancy, who is here, but I'm talking fast at the direction of the manager, so, the mayor. So because of that, the work is going to begin this summer. It should be completed by September 30th, because we did get that grant for, that will be used at the Morey School. So you can let your constituents and the teachers know. But we're coordinating efforts to see what other HVAC improvements are necessary so that we can optimize the functionality of the system at the Morey. Did I get that right, Commissioner Clancy? Okay. But we'll get your written report as well. But I know it's summertime, so you want to be able to let people know.
Wonderful, that's great news, and having the HVAC fix is probably more important than the report to me, so once this gets fixed, I think the schools, the staff, the parents, they will be very happy and thankful. Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion? Just one question, Madam Manager. When, we said this before, when we build these schools, and we hired a company to oversee it, there's no responsibility for the life of the loan on these buildings?
I don't know what the specifics are on the Morey, but usually the warranties don't last more than 2 years maybe, whether it's on HVAC or, the systems control. So it really isn't tied to the life of the loan, but really depending on the particular components. So this school in 2009 would be way beyond warranty. You would expect it to still function, I agree, but.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. We
Right.
hired somebody to oversee the project, and we had problems from the beginning, and it's frustrating, so.
Right.
But, thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion tonight, there's a registered speaker, Councilor Chow, request city manager investigate and recommend pedestrian safety improvements along Wachusett Street, including installation of lighting, collapsing drainage basins, and raised water valves protruding from the sidewalk. Councilor, seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Chow.
I think we have a registered speaker.
Yeah. Corey Robinson.
My name's Corey Robinson. First, I'd like to thank Councilor Chow for taking the phone call and putting this motion forward. I'd also like to thank the council, Madam Manager, Mayor Leahy. I was out in Centerville a lot recently, especially. These items were brought to my attention in the areas of 7 to 16 Wachusett, and further down the street as well, there's some serious infrastructure issues. First, there's catch basins that appear sunken and are about 2 feet below grade. It appeared like the barrel blocks or bricks are deteriorating, probably due to salt, which is common. Also, there's several water valves that protrude 2 to 3 inches above grade on the sidewalks, which are tripping hazards. I believe the water department has already checked it out, inspected it, and unable to correct it with a smaller valve collar since the sidewalk's settling. The knob sewer covers in the street significantly raised, which creates possibility to damage not only to pedestrian vehicles, but city plows in the snow operations. One possible solution would be to wrap this cover to eliminate the lip that protrudes above grade. Finally, the neighbors in the area had to purchase themselves, combined, and installed a light on the exterior of one of their buildings because there's no street light down that end. And it's something that if you could take a look in, maybe have the electrical department head over and see if that's something doable, because, again, it's the area of 7 through 16 Wachusett. There is a street light on the opposite end of Wachusett, but the other end is very dark. These are common issues throughout District 2 as well as citywide. I'm looking forward to continue conversations. Maybe we get a comprehensive schedule to deal with these type of infrastructure issues proactively in every neighborhood. I'm aware of the funds from the ARPA, and I know they are earmarked for some infrastructure. When we think infrastructure, maybe we start looking at some of the, smaller items. A lot of our infrastructure is historic, like our city, so it's a historic opportunity to use some of these funds at our fingertips. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Corey Robinson, for speaking on this motion. I think he says it all. It's regard to pedestrian safety. It's a neighborhood area. A lot of family walks there on the sidewalk in the evening in the dark. So to have some lighting to make sure the sidewalk are safe, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion tonight, Councilor Chow requests city manager provide policy and status updates for long-term parking and back-to-school readiness for the upcoming school year within the city garages. Seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And a few residents, as you know, Mr. Mayor, the residents contacted both you and myself, and I put this motion on behalf of you as well. That the health of downtown is really both the businesses and the residents, and we spoke at length today about downtown businesses already. What's the most important to the residents are the parking. They don't have the luxury as other neighborhoods where you can park on the street, or you can have a driveway or garages. For downtown residents, it's really the public parking garages. And I just want the parking director to provide policies, some standard policies, so the resident can understand and follow, and also just to plan for the upcoming school year, because in addition to the construction, we have the schools coming back, the high school, and then I'm not quite sure how with one garage may be impacted by the construction. I'm not sure if the college students at Middlesex that need to use the parking lot might be affected, where they would have to be relocated to park a different garage or what have you. But I think the long-term policies for this area, so everybody can be on the same page, that would be good for everybody to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. 11:15, Councilor Chow requests city manager update city council on the status of the tree planting program and investigate expanding the program throughout the Highlands area of the city. Seconded by Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Chow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself. I just want to add that it's really a great program to have trees, like green space in the lower Highlands and the acre, and just want to see how it's going, because when the program first came out, we had the residents in those two neighborhoods really excited. Also, I just want to see how that program is being campaigned to the residents in the lower Highlands. Lower Highlands is a very densely area of the city, probably the most dense in the entire city. If you look at the district map, we are the smallest on the map, but we have the same amount of, close to the same amount of people in the other district. We don't have a lot of lands. We do have a lot of buildings, a lot of multiple families, a lot of rentals, and the program is geared towards people who own the property to request for the tree to be planted. And I don't know if this program is being marketed to the landlords, because the landlords, they might not live at those properties, but the residents who live in those properties, they might want to have trees on the side yard, the front yard, or the backyard, or what have you. If the city could market this program to those properties in the lower Highlands, see if the landlord would allow the tenants to have trees at their property, that'd be good. And the second part of this motion is to expand the tree planting to the rest of the Highlands. I mentioned Upper Highlands. I'm sure there are other part of the neighborhoods in the city that might want trees in their neighborhoods too. But a few residents from Upper Highlands, they contacted me. They just saying it'd be nice to have more trees along the streets in Upper Highlands as well, to see green, to have green space. They would like to benefit from this program as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Next motion tonight, Councilor Drinkwater requests city manager vote in supporting the utilizing of Leo A. Roy parking garage for a mural project, and further request that the city manager work with Art Up, Lowell, and Beyond the Walls to initiate a call for artists and concepts for a mural project. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Drinkwater.
There's a registered speaker here, mister. Registered speaker first.
Please.
Mary Hart.
Thank you for letting me have the last word. Mr. Mayor, councilors, Madam Manager, I'm here to speak on item 1116. My name is Mary Hart. I live at 200 Market Street in downtown Lowell. I'm a Lowell resident. I've taught art and design at Middlesex Community College for over 20 years. I have a studio at Gates Block, which is on Market Street. I'm a member and a board member at Arts League of Lowell and know many artists in town. I've been a community art activist and organizer for the 8 years I've lived in Lowell. As to murals downtown, yes, please. I am a fan of murals. I've been to Lynn, I've been to Salem, I've been to Miami, I've been to Montreal, I've been lots of places and seen them. Beautiful, professionally executed, creative, dynamic, they enliven the public space. But what is public art for? Art never stopped a war. Art never got anybody a job. That's not its function. Art cannot change events, but it can change people. It can enrich, enable, and encourage. That's a quote from Leonard Bernstein. So what is public art for? Lowell is proud of its artists. We have nearly 500 of them who live in the area and are active in our community. But are we utilizing this resource? Are we engaging them? Are we including artists in planning and soliciting ideas and proposals with a timely and comprehensive outreach to the artists who live in our city? If art is a measure of the culture of a place, a particular place, does it make sense to put up a big colorful mural from an artist from somewhere else? How will this reflect our artistic visions? Especially, most especially, when we have so many talented artists living in Lowell, who know Lowell intimately. And this is my point in speaking tonight. It's why I sat here for 3 hours. It's time to include local artists in a concrete and comprehensive and timely manner in projects, not tacked on at the last minute. Not, oh, call the artists, they'll do it. Artists are professionals. We are tradespeople. We provide service. And that's my point. It's time to include local artists as advisors and selection panelists for new projects, particularly for art projects. Artists should be sitting on selection boards. Employ artists as visionaries on planning committees for new building and developments to include art as part of the plan from the ground up. And finally, include artists as paid providers of creativity and talent in the form of artworks in the public spaces of our city. Everyone talks about buying local. It's a mantra these days. But that can and should apply to art as well. Our artists are here and waiting and ready to go. We hope the city will call on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm glad to be speaking on this motion tonight, particularly in light of the earlier discussion that we had about the downtown. So I feel this is timely. Obviously, there are many factors to making downtown Lowell successful, and public art is not going to solve crises like homelessness and addiction, but there are many factors that make downtown successful, and I would argue that one of them is more or less intangible. It's how people feel when they go to a downtown area, and I would suggest that our downtown does need a boost, something to make it vibrant, to foster pride, to get people excited to be there. And I ask everyone to actually put this in your mind's eye, this image, that as you enter downtown, coming down Market Street towards Central Street, and you look across the park featuring the iconic Mill Girl statue, the possibility of a colorful and compelling professional mural on a highly visible, city-owned wall on a non-historic building in the heart of our downtown area, which is the heart of our city. And I credit Councilor Mercier for a great use of metaphor in her motion title earlier tonight. Downtown is the heart of our city. And while a mural may not be a panacea for the issues that downtown faces, I really believe it will help to create some of that vibrancy and make people want to go downtown and feel some civic pride. And I wish I could tell you that this is all my vision, but it's not. This motion is filed because of a partnership that's currently working to bring this vision to Lowell, to find locations, both public and private, to work with the local arts community, to find artists and ideas, and to raise a substantial amount of money to make sure that these projects can happen. This partnership, you may have read about it a few weeks ago in the Lowell Sun. It's between Art Up Lowell, which is an initiative of Project Learn, and Beyond Walls with generous seed funding from Nancy Donahue. Art Up has worked with the local arts community here in Lowell to buy art from local artists and place it in places like the Lowell Community Health Center. And Beyond Walls is an organization that has absolutely transformed the city of Lynn in an overwhelmingly positive way, with over 70 murals in less than a decade, working with artists and the local arts community in Lynn. To show you the economic benefit that this can have, in 2018, the city of Lynn and Beyond Walls hosted a 10-day International Mural Festival featuring 15 new murals, which was attended by more than 5,000 Lynn residents and visitors. A study on that festival showed that 5,235 individuals attended events and watched the mural installation, spending more than $108,000, mostly in local restaurants and bars. Through the 10-day festival, Beyond Walls garnered more than 75 pieces of positive press for the city, 4.5 million social media impressions, which accounts for free media coverage estimated at a value of $407,000 to get images in front of that many people. That was over a 10-day period, and the economic impacts are felt there every day. So we're fortunate because Beyond Walls, I think, could be looking anywhere, but they're looking to bring their technical expertise on making mural projects happen here to Lowell, and it's an incredible opportunity. So this motion is put forward to ask the City Council to go on record as supporting the use of this wall on the Roy parking garage on Market Street for a mural project, and to create a call for artists and ideas and for the support and production needed to create such a large piece of art. And that call would go out to all artists with the goal absolutely being to incorporate the work and the ideas of local artists and the community, especially youth, which is a particular goal of the Art Up project. So this partnership between Beyond Walls and Art Up envisions many murals across the city, not just one. Hopefully many or all will feature the work of Lowell artists, but it will be a process that's open to all and hopefully attract talent from wherever and whoever wants to come and bring their talents to the city of Lowell. So You know, I think this could be an incredible opportunity to, like I said, create some vibrancy for the downtown. And I hope that the city can take the lead, and the historic board will have their role as well. But we're asking private building owners to come forward and work with artists to identify locations for these projects. And I think we can take a real lead here by making a city-owned wall available for a project that can help boost our downtown. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Councilor Rourke,
I
need a
think,
motion to
yeah, thank you, Mr.
suspend
Mayor.
the
Can we
rules?
just pause the motions and take 10.1 out of order? We have a gentleman that's been here all meeting long.
Yeah, 10.2, yeah.
10.2, I'm sorry.
So, motion by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Chow. Take 10.2 out of order. 10.2 miscellaneous. Atlas ATC requests temporary access for staging area at 25 Carter Avenue. We have a registered speaker. Yeah.
Steve Law or Tim Waugh?
Good evening, my name is Tim War. I'm with US Ecology. We're an environmental contracting company, and my office is out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Apologize, I didn't know that I was supposed to register. I thought that was for Zoom folks.
There was a little mistake, so you're fine. Sorry for the wait.
No worries. The purpose of the request is to obtain temporary access to the park so that we can perform a residential cleanup at the abutting residence. The location between the residence and the park is only about 3 feet, and the current plan is to lift the house off the foundation, excavate contaminated dirt, remove the entire foundation, pour a new foundation, and lower the house back down. The letter on file says August, but I think the likely schedule is probably starting in September, and we're going to need access to the park for 4 months. And I'm just here to ask, what's the process? What do I need to provide as a contractor? Obviously, we need to sign an easement. I need to provide you a bond. Just looking for guidance.
Okay, thank you. So this will go to the law department for report and recommendation, so that'd be the next step. So, all right. And someone will be in touch with some sort of timeline.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So need a motion to refer to law department by Council Rourke, second by Council Samaras.
Mr. Mayor, could we do 8.1 quickly as well?
Which one?
8.1.
Yep. Okay, communications. City manager requests approval of constable bonds for Leslie Stirk. Anything on this, or just motion to adopt? Madam Manager, that's it?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion by Councilor Rourke to approve, seconded by Councilor Conway. Roll call.
Councilor Noon, Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Samaras. Yes. Councilor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercy.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Okay, back to the agenda, Councilor Drinkwater. Request city manager contact DCAM to ask for a status update on Hurd Street Courthouse and timeline for sale of or auction of the property. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. 11:18, Councilor Drinkwater requests city manager provide an update on the community choice power supply aggregation, energy broker contracts, and process and timeline for entering new contracts. Seconded by Councilor Chow. Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that the council entered into the community choice power supply aggregation contract a couple years ago. It's coming up for renewal at the end of the year, as is the energy broker contract. I thought it was a great decision to enter the agreement. Hope our commitment to renewable energy can continue, and so look forward to the report. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Councilor Rourke, next motion, request city manager work with police department to form a police action league, PAL, for Lowell youth. Seconded by Councilor Samaras. Councilor Rourke.
Looks like the motion's already been answered. I've read the paper this weekend. Maybe just a quick report on what's being offered. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Need a motion to go past 10 o'clock. Motion by Counselor Drinkwater, seconded by? Nobody? Okay. Motion fails, so lack of second. So, motion adjourned by Counselor Rourke, seconded by Counselor Elliott.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
We did have a couple of transfers that we had to get done. Which ones? If we could bundle just the transfer.
Huh?
But would have to go beyond 10 o'clock.
Is it on the vote there? Or I just bundle the votes and then we'll end it?
6.4, 5, and 6 are time sensitive.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, well, look, we need a motion to go past 10 o'clock. I'll make the motion to just go for the transfers, and then we adjourn.
The others we can take up, but just
All
those
right,
three.
motion by Counselor Elliott to go past the 10 o'clock rule, just to bundle the votes, and that's the end of it, seconded by Counselor Mercia.
6.4, 6.5, 6.6, that's all.
I'll just do all
Just
the
read the
votes, right?
transfers, and then we'll vote on them, and then adjourn.
What's that?
I said we just have, you've got to read them.
Yeah,
vote
yeah.
them, Right.
Okay. All right. Votes by the city manager, 6-1, vote to accept.
No, 6, 4, 5, and 6.
I'm just gonna do them all. They'll all bundle together, right? No problem with that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Vote, accept and expend Mass In Motion grant for $60,000 for Mass Health Department. 6-2, vote to accept and expend state opiate response prevention in early childhood grant. 6-3, accept and expend tobacco grant for $75,000 for the health department. 6-4, vote and apply, accept, expend American Rescue Plan funds. 6-5, vote transfer $79,400 for cemeteries. 6-6, vote transfer $8,525.13 for DPD. Vote 6-7, vote accept gift of anonymous donor for Crowley Park. 6-8, vote and accept gift for new car Lannon Chevy of Lowell for LHS. And that's it. So, motion to approve by Council Rourke, second by Council Elliott. Roll call. Council Noon, Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samara.
Yes.
Council Chow.
Yes.
Council Conley.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas. Okay, motion adjourned. Done. Council Samaras, Council Elliott.